And I believe we are recording.
All right, I'm looking for my meeting packet. It's in here somewhere. Here we go. Okay, everybody's in the room?
Yes.
All right, welcome to the pre-holiday or the holiday version of the Cannabis Licensing and Advisory Board on December 5th, City of Boulder. Let's start off with virtual meeting and rules of decorum. John?
Thank you very much, Chair Kunzman. I'm going to share my screen and I will be reading aloud for the people who do not have the ability to see my screen, our rules of decorum. Oh, I believe, Caitlin, I do not have the ability to share my screen.
Try now.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. Okay. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board commission members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. More about this vision and the project's community engagement process can be found at bouldercolorado.gov/services/productive-atmospheres. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to all matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. During agenda item number 2, we have the general public comments for the board. At that time, if you wish to make public comment, you can use the reactions button at the bottom of the Zoom screen to raise your hand, and your name will be added to the queue. Okay, and that is our rules of decorum. And Chair, are you ready for member roll call?
I have to remember to unmute before I speak. Let's go ahead and do the roll call. Sorry.
Certainly, thank you. Member Anderson? I need you to virtually for the record. Thank you very much. I'm like, I see your thumb raised. I see your thumb, but I appreciate it. Member Christie?
Present.
Member Green?
Present.
Member Kunzman?
Present.
Member Malone?
Present.
Member Noble?
Present.
Member Thompson?
Present.
And Member Bailey?
Present.
Thank you so much. For the record, we are still awaiting a confirmation from Member Keegan to appear, and Member Christie informed us that he would be leaving at around 4 p.m. This afternoon. Thank you very much.
Okay. So you all have, excuse me, have the minutes from the November meeting. Are there any concerns, questions, corrections, additions? I think that actually 2 sets of minutes, October and November. But we'll do one at a time. If no concerns, I'll take a motion to approve the October minutes.
I'll motion to approve them.
So that's Stacy. Second on that? Any abstentions or opposition to approving?
Tom, why were the October minutes in this packet?
That would be a Kristen question. Kristen, do you remember?
Yeah, that's a good question, Robin. Thanks for asking. So we added one thing to the October minutes to clarify the vote record for one of the items. Previously was just listed as, I think 3-2, but we actually listed the names of who voted each way. We have to do that on every set of minutes, and that was missed for October. So I apologize for that.
Okay, I'll second that Member Green's motion to approve the October minutes.
Okay, any, once again, any abstention or votes against approving? Okay, November. Any concerns there? I guess that brings up another question, Kristen. Have we gone through all past minutes to make sure that who voted which way is listed?
Yes, that was just a one-time mistake that was made in October.
Okay. Any, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Stacy, you were good at it last time.
I'll go ahead and do it again then. I motion to approve.
All right, any seconds on that?
I'll second that motion.
Robin, that was? Is that right? Okay. Any abstention or opposition to approve? Okay, and Brian's here. Now let's go to the retreat summary, which it says we need to approve. Is that correct, Kristen?
Yes, we were advised to get just a formal approval on that before we put it into our records.
Okay. So you have it in your reading packet, I believe.
Yes, it's a reading packet, page 40.
Any questions or concerns about the information from the retreat? Information was captured well. All right, a motion to approve there. Stacy, you were on a roll.
All right, then I'll motion to approve the retreat summary.
And a second on that.
Brian seconds.
All right. And anyone in opposition to approving? Okay. All are approved.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is general public comments for the board. John, do you want to go ahead and read?
Certainly. I do see that we have one hand raised. Excuse me. Of anyone else, members of the public who wish to make public comment, you are welcome to raise your hand. And then also, I want a clarification, Chair. Are we doing the 3-minute timer or no?
Yeah. Versus what, John?
Well, I remembered in the past you said that we're not doing 3-minute timers on comments. I just wanted to get your clarification for this meeting and meetings moving forward.
Well, we hadn't introduced her yet, but a question for Laurel.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Chair. I apologize, Laurel. Joining us today is the Assistant City Attorney, Laurel Witt. As Kathy is not present with us today, we are pleased to have Miss Laurel Witt here today.
Thank you so much, John and Chair. I think something that we have done in the past in the city is to be able to do timer timers to make it even for everybody who speaks. But it's up to you if you want to use one or not. Also, I look forward to serving you guys today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
And Kathy is in Mexico, in case anybody wants to know. So we're pleased to have Laura with us. So we have sometimes when there's been a lot of public comment speakers, we've reduced it to 2 minutes.
Mhm.
And
And that's the chair's decision.
okay, but I think if we said we had an hour time limit, some people might be concerned about that. I don't know.
And as of right now, we just have one with their hand raised.
I think to stay consistent with past situations, I think we'll stick with 3 minutes. Now, 3 minutes can include time for questions afterwards. I don't know if you've been here, Evan, when we've had a public comment yet.
I've been here. I've been present for many people waiting in the gallery, but given that they were so patiently waiting since, I don't know, I started in July, I feel like Mr. Guard may have a need to speak for more than 3 minutes, and barring anything ridiculous, I would definitely want to extend him the opportunity to explain why he's volunteering his time to be on this call today. So I know 3 minutes is an important number when we have 50 people waiting to talk, but since we do not have a single other person, I would like to hear Mr. Guard and his complete opinion about what he needs to bring up to us today.
Well,
I don't think he wants to talk for more than 5 minutes anyway. I just want to make sure we're not cutting him off at 3.
again, being the chair, I have been told by the city attorney that was on our board in the past that it's up to me. So unless someone's opposed, we could set the timer for 5 minutes, but then still have time for questions, John.
Certainly.
And that is correct. It is up to you, Chair.
At this point in time, I don't see anyone else raising their hands, and there's only 2 other public attendees. So,
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen with the 5-minute timer. And Mr. Guard, you are ready to speak.
Jeff, are you able to unmute? Or it looks like you're still mute. Now you're not mute. Can everybody else hear Jeff?
No.
I can hear that sounds like you're in the next state. Jeff, give us, change your hand to a thumbs up if you can hear us. Okay, that's good, but we cannot hear anything of you. Do you want to sign out and sign back in? I noticed that sometime, maybe about 2 minutes ago, his face appeared and then disappeared.
It appeared that he disappeared, so hopefully he'll be back shortly. There he is. Come on back.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear
Yes,
you.
thank you very
Hey.
much.
Thank you. All that talk about 5 minutes, I wasted 2 of it just getting technology to work. So
No,
You're just fine.
we haven't started the timer yet, Jeff. Are you ready?
I am certainly ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. As you know, I've been raising this issue about non-conforming use protection for properties that have been traditionally used by cannabis businesses. This is called grandfathering. My letter to you and to the council sets out the issue, which is that non-conforming use protection is afforded to all properties in Boulder other than cannabis businesses. The Title IX does not specifically exclude cannabis businesses. It is a work of interpretation from the cannabis ordinances themselves, which essentially in function have been, let's say a marijuana business closes, then that property then is even though it's a non-conforming use, it's already a non-conforming use. It, unlike any other business, is subject to a sort of brand new review. And because a lot of times other things will open up or the density for marijuana businesses will surround an original business, that business then is excluded. And I gave numerous examples of where that has happened with a bunch of businesses that have closed. And I've also given examples where that would happen were, say, the farm to close, or because it's too close to 24-hour Fitness's licensed daycare. Now, the farm has been operating at that location before 24-hour Fitness. But when 24-hour Fitness opens and pulls a daycare license, which they have, then the farm would not be able to reopen, or another business would not be able to lease that location. Non-conforming use is, again, a protection afforded to every business in the city, except for cannabis businesses. And even within that subset, all of the annexed Boulder County businesses, and Kristen can speak to this from her experience, when Boulder annexed the Boulder County marijuana businesses, they wouldn't have been able to do that if they didn't afford non-conforming use and grandfathering protection. For instance, they don't have sprinkler systems that would otherwise be required. They are zoned too densely related to other cannabis businesses. These are all grows over there. And as Kristen would tell you, when Boulder County decided to do grows, they didn't care how many grows were next to each other as long as there wasn't an odor problem. But the city has no more than 3 within 500 feet, for instance, for any business. So what I'm suggesting is a modification to the city ordinance regarding cannabis businesses that essentially say, you're subject to a review, but you're also subject to the non-conforming use protection that allows another similar type business to open at that location, as long as that non-conforming use is resumed within 1 calendar year. That's the limitation we place on all these things. So if the grocery store on the hill were to close and not reopen for a year, they would lose the ability to open a retail type of market there forever. But if somebody else came in and wanted to operate that there, they could do that as long as that happened within that 1 year. So that's it in a nutshell. And the reason that I raise this is that cannabis businesses have very, very few opportunities in the city now to be able to open. There's almost nothing that isn't zoned out for them. There's very few opportunities for them. And so where traditionally the businesses have been located, like the farm, for instance, we'll just use that as the example, that business would close and for the most part be shuttered. So if you look at one of the most successful businesses was High Grade Alternatives. It lost its license because it didn't have a manager on duty during an inspection. Nobody else has been able to open up a shop over there in the 10 years it's been closed, and that actual unit where it was has been shuttered for 10 years. It is not, nothing has been able to reopen there. So what we're looking to do is to give marijuana businesses the same opportunities and the same protections afforded to all other non-conforming use businesses, so that they could move around to another location. Say the farm wants to close, but 14er wants to open up over at that location. That couldn't happen under the current scheme because of non-conforming use, a lack of non-conforming use protection. So I wanted to clarify that, and it's just something that's always been a problem because I've had to unfortunately be part of, sorry, my time is up, been part of watching so many of these businesses shutter and then never be able to reopen for that same use when any other business could have done that.
So questions for Mr. Gard? John, if you could turn the timer off for a moment so we can see.
Certainly.
Although,
I'd imagine not, imagine not, Tom. I've sent this thing up the flagpole for the last 6 years, so people are pretty familiar with what I'm trying to do. And so hopefully it's just something we take up. I think it's just a fair thing to do it.
although I just want to call the board's attention to the fact that we will have a second speaker, so let's keep that in mind. Robin,
I
question?
just want to ask really quickly. So in your memo and what you just, your comments just now, you said that all other city businesses have grandfathering and non-conforming use protections.
Yes.
So I think this is a question for you and maybe for Laurel, but is there any other category that has to deal with these kind of restrictions or not having the ability to grandfather in for a year? Is there any other category of business at all?
Not
Did
that
you want
I'm
to
aware
answer
of,
first?
Laurel.
Yeah.
Laurel, I'm not sure. I haven't seen any. I did some pretty exhaustive research, Robin. It's sort of it applies to everyone. And the only reason it doesn't apply to cannabis businesses is the marijuana ordinances themselves were not written with that being contemplated as an option.
Laurel,
Thank
Laurel, do you want to?
Yeah, so I don't have any specific examples. We could do some more research and get back to you definitely on specific examples. But generally speaking, the code sections that are referred to is that marijuana businesses aren't treated like other businesses isn't true necessarily, because other businesses have these property rights and marijuana licensing is more of a privilege, is something that we give to somebody as a privilege of operating business in the city. So it's treated a little bit differently in the code. So that's why there may not be an exact comparison between two different businesses, but we can do a little bit more research and get back to you.
So to
If I could
augment,
respond to that, Tom, it's
one second, Jeff.
liquor licensing.
Yeah,
Liquor licensing is a privilege also, and if you had a liquor license at a location and another business wanted to open up, you would still have that liquor license continue with that business, like all the other ones. So that it's not quite the same. So that is something that happens.
so Jeff, to augment Robin's question, a question for you and Laurel. Thank you for pointing out liquor businesses. What about gun shops too? Aren't there some limitations on where gun shops can open up?
Not that I'm aware of. And of course, we know the only gun shop left in Boulder is a block from the high school. And when it changed ownership from Carter's, it used to be called Carter's. Now it's called Boulder Gun Sport. They were allowed to continue that to the extent it would be a non-conforming use, which I don't believe it is. They were allowed to continue under new ownership at that same location. But it's really something akin more like to liquor licensing. So if you owned that chicken shop where Salvaggio's had a liquor license on the corner of Broadway and Colorado, and then the chicken shop opened up, they have the same exact liquor license that goes, even though it's a privilege and not a right, that non-conforming use of having a liquor license at that location runs with essentially the property as opposed to the owner or ownership of the business.
Brian, did you have a question? Oh, okay. So let's go back to the liquor establishment. And so if a liquor establishment lost their license for whatever reason, and then either someone else bought the business or they tried to reopen in the same place, but a daycare had opened up 100 feet away, how would that play out, Laurel and or Jeff?
It would depend on how the license transferred. If it was a transfer of ownership versus a new license, which is kind of what we're talking about here, the new license would still have to follow all the liquor license requirements. Unless I'm mistaken, Kristen or John, feel free to jump in since you've done these a few more times. But the liquor license would have to go through the same process, just like a marijuana store, where if you get a new license, you still have to go through the processes. There is a transfer of ownership option, but you have to be up to date on all the tax and all of these things in order to be able to transfer that ownership. Did I get that right, Kristen and John? If there's something missing, please feel free to jump in. But it seems sort of similar.
But it doesn't start over from a zoning perspective. That's a licensing perspective. So when the Rio had to close while they renovated, they were able to move into the Ted's spot, even though Ted's had shuttered its doors some period of time before that. So they were able to continue operating and having their liquor license there. And then when they wanted to move back to the Rio, where it's located now, they were able to do that. And so the problem with cannabis is it starts over from a zoning perspective, which is what a non-conforming use protection affords. It sort of says, okay, you have to apply for the licensure here, okay, at say the farm, but the property itself is already been historically in use for cannabis, and it's a non-conforming use that we've already approved. So that approval of non-conforming use, as long as it's reopened and within 1 year, continues at that location. But the new owner would have to apply for a new cannabis license and all that. And but again, the property itself wouldn't have to start over from a zoning review standpoint.
Yeah, and kind of what you're talking about is, so I advise liquor licensing within the city. I'm on the Beverage Licensing Authority. There's like a difference between licensing and then the actual conforming use. Just like CLAB oversees licensing for marijuana, BLA oversees licensing for the Beverage Licensing Authority. There's somebody else who oversees these like land use decisions, which I know, Mr. Guard, you've gone up and down with the procedures as far as the land use side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different.
Yes.
Evan, questions? Oh, you're still mute.
Two major things. The categories of exclusion for marijuana businesses is actually more comprehensive than it is for liquor licensing. So that's worth considering. I don't believe daycares is actually included for liquor licenses. That's the reason why there's lots of liquor licenses that are right next to daycares. That's an exclusion that is unique to cannabis, not to alcohol. One. Number two, I believe the way that these privilege licenses work, at least at the state level, is related to the individual and not necessarily the use. And because of that, you have individuals who can be excluded from liquor licensing, despite the fact that the location, if transferred to an appropriate license holder, would not be excluded. And I think that's ultimately at the thrust of this. That's essentially what Mr. Guard is seeking here, that a business that is removed from the city for whatever reason as individuals do not necessarily prohibit that facility from being occupied by a different individual under the same license.
Sorry to interrupt. I think there's an opportunity to do a discussion later down in the agenda. I think this is just for questions.
I was just going to say that, Laurel, actually. So this will be
Sorry,
time.
not to interrupt.
No, you're right. I was just going to say the same thing. This is a time for questions for Mr. Guard, and then we will have a discussion.
Okay. Jeff, is there a difference between the licensing of an individual versus the licensing of a business in this situation? In the case that an individual is deemed to be unsuitable for the license, would that exclude the license independent of that person? The way that the city code is written currently.
The answer, Evan, is yes. And I think this would be going something to maybe one of Robin's concerns. So here we have a business that's kind of a scofflaw, hasn't done things right. And Kristen has to take steps to remove that licensee, but that property itself has been in use historically for, say, a decade or more as a cannabis business. The property itself currently would be excluded, whereas it wouldn't be if it was a liquor license. So it could be reopened like where that vacuum store is now, for instance, on the corner of Valmont and 28th. So you could, we don't lose our ability to control the bad actors and get rid of them, but we lose that ability to use that property for that same non-conforming use, the way the code is currently interpreted and written under the cannabis part.
Cool, thank you.
All right, other questions for Mr. Guard? And I guess I have one. It's a slightly complicated question, but since this is an issue that's already been brought up to City Council under the realm or during the realm of MAP, what is it you would really like, because it involves different parts of the city that we can't control, the Cannabis Licensing Advisory Board. What is it you would ask of CLAB at this point in time, Jeff?
Thank you, Tom. To be frank, and Kate can speak to this because she was on the MAP, this issue did not make it to council. Most of the issues that were discussed in MAP did not make it to council. And so council's never had an opportunity to weigh in one way or the other about whether it would extend the non-conforming use protection to everyone, including marijuana businesses, or would they continue to support excluding cannabis businesses from non-conforming use protection? So it's never made it to that point. And at the point that MAP changed to CLAB, I raised and brought the same issue to CLAB because that was the new vehicle to make the recommendation. So what I would ask is, if the group is in agreement that out of fairness, marijuana businesses should have the same non-conforming use protection, to just simply make that recommendation like they're making for other things like CBD sales or potentially hospitality, which you're debating now. So that's why.
Okay. If there are no more questions for Mr. Guard, then I will ask everybody to hold their thoughts for a moment.
Tom, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
And maybe this is a question more suited for you, Laurel. I believe it was you, Laurel. Maybe it was Jeff that had characterized the license as a privilege. And I'm curious, is a liquor license also considered a privilege?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so put in a mental placeholder and let's hear from our.
Thank you, Laurel. I haven't had a chance to meet you. I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, you too, Mr. Guard. Yes, I'm just here temporarily while
Okay.
Kathy is out of the office.
Understood.
Okay, so we have another speaker, Laura Parker. And since I gave Jeff 5 minutes, then I will allow you the same, Laura. If you don't mind, can I call you Laura?
Yes, it's Lara. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I certainly don't mean to take away from Jeff's time because he is definitely more knowledgeable than I am about these laws. I really just wanted to hop on quick and just really reiterate his stance that this is something that could be brought to City Council's attention. It is kind of a disparity in the rules. Cannabis companies are up against a lot of rules and regulations, and in most cases we're happy to do it. We want to stay in compliance. We want to offer this product safely and in a healthy way to the people who are supposed to have it. We want to keep it out of the hands of children. We agree with all of these things that you guys do legislature wise, but this is kind of, I feel, something that's kind of slipped through the cracks. I work for a cannabis company here in Boulder, and I've witnessed the stress that goes into renewing a license just simply over the thought that any little typo or minor error that could hold up licensing for even a matter of a few hours, we could completely lose that location forever if this person renewing our license doesn't have everything completely in order and completely on top of it. It shouldn't be that difficult, but it is. And historically, there have been companies that had a lapse in their license for less than 24 hours, and they're no longer operating in that location. And it just seems a bit much. I feel like we're definitely held to a higher standard than most companies, and by nature of what we produce and sell, we should be. But here's an area where we can maybe make it a little more fair. And I'd like to suggest even potentially recommending to City Council to take it by a case-by-case basis. You know, obviously, if a company's in major compliance infractions and have been doing some really bad things, then okay, maybe they don't get to keep that location. But if it's something simple like a typo or just a for whatever reason things didn't go through and they're able to get their license right away, I don't feel like they should have to move and lose that location. Once you lose your location, you're up against really limited zoning areas. And, if you can find a building in that limited zone that is going to let you, do business there. I mean, it's just really, it really limits where companies can operate. And unfortunately, it kind of runs companies out of town. If they can't operate easily or, here in Boulder, they'll move on to other locations. That was all I wanted to say, just that I think that Jeff is fighting a good fight, and I wholeheartedly agree, and I really, really hope you guys bring this to City Council.
All right, questions for Lara? Okay. What was that? Something? Was that you, Evan? Oh, okay. Some audio slipped in there. I thought it sounded like you. So any other? I see no other public comment. John, is that correct? So let's officially close public comment and move on to the. Actually, so there was more discussion about the retreat, but I'm thinking to keep things in line with what we just heard, maybe we can switch items 3 and items 4. Anyone opposed to that?
You'll need a motion.
Who said that?
Me, sorry. Laurel
okay.
said it. Yeah,
All right.
a motion to move the agenda around.
Does anyone agree that that might be a logical chain of events?
Say that again real quick, Tom. What are you shooting for here?
Right now, if we go per agenda, the next agenda item is to follow up on the retreat and discuss working agreements and ground rules that we discussed at the retreat. Item 4 was to review the policy suggestion form submitted by Mr. Gard.
I'm fine sticking with the agenda if that's easier.
Say it again, Alana.
I'm fine sticking with the agenda if that's easier. Also.
Doesn't matter to me. Okay. Well, then let's keep your memory intact to discuss agenda item 4, and we'll talk about the retreat. So what page was it again? Page 40, you said, John?
For the event, pardon me, for the retreat summary is on page 40 of the reading packet.
Which I'm trying to scroll down to. I want to thank everybody who participated, and we're sorry you couldn't be with us, Kate. You were there in name and spirit. So tried to figure out a way to do it hybrid, but oh well. Did you want to add anything to the comments since you didn't get a chance to participate?
I added my notes to the Jamboard, and I'm going through the retreat summary, and I don't have any questions about what was discussed or what's in there. So more just if there's more, that you all are going to discuss, I'll be interested in hearing that.
All right, we had a good discussion about making procedures, or the procedures for making motions. Did anybody have any concerns about those whatsoever? I think had some good discussion about that.
Yeah, this is really helpful clarification for me. Thanks to whoever put it together. I assume maybe Laurel or Kathy, Kristen, thanks.
Did anybody have any comments about, ground rules are kind of the basic ground rules we've always tried to live by. Kate?
Yeah, I just realized I did have a question about the conversation about pre-considered motions. I saw it in kind of the notes and just wanted to understand what the process or what that outside of like the regular process for motions in the meeting, what the conversation was about there and what I'll see moving forward or what we'll see moving forward.
Evan, did you want to address that or?
Yeah, I brought it up, so I'll address it here. What the thrust of the conversation surrounded the idea that we tend to make motions on the fly, and in doing so, the language of them can get a little muddled. And having the opportunity to present motions and the language specific for that motion before we step into the conversation, I think presents an opportunity for us to be a little more concise about what we're actually recommending. Some things are in the affirmative, some things are in the opposition. It's hard for us to, I think, reasonably all understand exactly what every motion that myself or Brian or any of you guys are bringing up kind of in the heat of the moment. So I think kind of presenting language for motions is a way to kind of contain the conversation, because I also believe that when we make motions, we also end up getting into the most passionate conversations of the debate. So I think it's just a way to approach this. I don't think it's mandatory. I think looking at the notes here, we're not talking about saying that it is a necessary thing to pre-consider motions, but at least for myself, I have 4 written that I would like to consider in January that I will be submitting to you guys after notes taken from tonight. So I think just if we approach this with concise language for our motions, they can be more valuable to council. So that's where it came from.
Cool. Thanks for explaining that.
In the least concise way possible. I apologize.
So just to clarify with Laurel, because we've done it in distant past, and I believe Alana, at least at one point in time, you may have done 1 or 2 of them, that people on the board can make policy suggestion forms. So that way people have a heads up before they approach the meeting. Is that true, Laurel?
As far as I understand it, yes, that's true. I don't know how much it's been utilized in the past, but
Am I right in remembering that, Alana?
Yeah. One, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for people on the board. We can raise topics just like this as well. It's a little bit of a tricky thing because one of the things that I submitted that was the most specific to my business, if we ever talked about it, I wouldn't be part of the conversation, I think. So
yeah, under conflict of interest rules.
So depending on how the item that you want to advocate for, could impact you or that you could benefit from it, it may be something you just have to kind of not raise.
Yeah, the policy suggestion form is it's a rather in-depth procedure. It's not necessarily, if we're making a motion that's 1 or 2 sentences long, the 3-page policy suggestion form is a little onerous, in my opinion.
I'm just wondering, Laurel, how does it work on other boards or commissions? Like, say, for instance, and I'm just going to go out on a limb here. Let's say Evan, who's the newest member of the board, decided that he thought we should revote a certain thing that we had voted in the past. Like the age of 25 to get into hospitality suites. And sorry for singling that possibility out, Evan, but it's entirely.
You and Punxsutawney Phil should compete because you clearly have a prognosticatory ability.
You and I also had coffee one day, so.
Oh, I'll keep it all to one meeting. It won't be this one. I'll say that.
So maybe I wonder if we could have a board member. I mean, because it gives other people the luxury of being able to think about it before they walk into this virtual meeting and sit down at their computer.
You know, one thing that I've seen other boards do is that there is a section on our agenda on matters from the chair and members of the board. So if it's not particularly related to hospitality, it sounds like we're talking about hospitality tonight. So that's, you know, we're already going to be talking about that, maybe bring it up during that particular conversation. But there is a section in the agenda to talk about specific issues if you want to. And if you wanted other people to be aware of it in advance, there may be a way to, and maybe this is a good discussion to have with Kathy when she's back, but there may be a way to put that onto the agenda so people can see, all of you guys can see what we're going to be talking about. Right now, we just have articles included in the reading packet, but you could add other things if somebody wants to talk about something specific.
So it'd be up to the board member specifically, any one of us, but we could like write a paragraph with the reasoning as to why we want to visit an issue, any issue. So that everybody has a heads up, something like that. How's that?
Yeah, and I don't know, some other boards have made it where you have to vote to approve it to be on the agenda, you know, so that the agendas don't get too long. I don't know how that would work here necessarily, but I've seen other boards do that where they put it under matters, which is item number 8 on the agenda. And city council does that too.
Okay. Any other further discussion about working agreements and or ground rules? And if not, then I would suggest we move on to the policy suggestion form. Especially before
I
we
would
leave.
just add just something to think about, Tom, potentially just going off of what Laurel's saying. Oftentimes I've kind of withheld my items because the meetings go so long and our agenda item, like a single item, might take up 2.5 hours, and then we get to the end of the agenda and you can just feel everyone needs to go and it's so late. So perhaps we could move it up 1 or 2 items in the agenda to just encourage people to stick with, you know, their plan and bring forth their items, because it is an important item on our agenda, the matters which we all have to discuss with one another. And I don't think the use is currently optimized with just using it to cite the articles that are put in the packet. So anyway, just for consideration, thanks.
Okay. Well, we can, Laurel might not be there when Brian and I and Kristen and John, when we discuss the agenda order next time, we can remember your request.
I have,
Leave a note
I'm
for
certainly
Kathy.
taking a note, absolutely.
Okay. Unless I hear any other reason to continue that discussion, I'd like to go on to the policy suggestion form while we still have Michael present.
Tom, did you want to, do we need to vote on, I mean, obviously not me, but on the summary? Or did that already happen? Did I miss it?
The summary of the retreat.
Yeah.
I think we did that.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
during agenda item number 1.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
It was so fast, you missed it. Okay. How do you want to do this? I'm talking about the policy suggestion form. Go ahead, Kate.
I have a question based on what was discussed earlier and based on the suggestion form itself. The proposed language that Jeff put in his the email to city council, as well as the policy suggestion form citing to the 614.7 and 616.7, like basically kind of citing us to like follow the limitations of 910.2. Are those things that are proposed? Is that something that we could recommend and could do, or is that something that would still need to go through land use conversations? I mean, obviously we can recommend that we want it to change and we want cannabis businesses to be able to have this allowance. But is this sufficient in your mind, Laurel, or would we have to go through just the recommendation and then the other process has to start?
Yeah, I would have to go through recommendations since Title IX is outside of CLAB's authority underneath our ordinance codes. You'd have to go through either City Council or some other avenue and recommend those changes. City Council, even though they haven't discussed it in a City Council meeting, I think they have been made aware of Mr. Guard's proposals before, so they are aware of that. But again, it's a little bit outside of CLAB, so it would be more of a recommendation if you guys choose
Okay.
to do that.
And then if that was the case, if Title IX did take it up and they did decide to make those changes, they would be changing potentially the 614 and 16 codes.
In
within
which
that.
case, I imagine they would come back and talk to you guys about
Got it.
what that would look like. Yes, if you guys decided to go down that path.
Okay, thank you.
Robin?
Thank you. I've thought about this proposal from Mr. Guard a lot and looked at things, and I have to admit, this seems really unfair. It's an unfair setup, and but I also am sensitive to the city wanting to have a lot of insurance if there's a bad operator or a bad situation, but tying it to the location just seems very unfair in a lot of ways. So I would support some of the things he's recommended for the wording change to the statute. Maybe we pass that along with a favorable recommendation, but there was something that Ms. Parker said in her comments that I thought were really intriguing. And she said, if you could potentially evaluate things on a case-by-case basis, and maybe that's a middle ground, and maybe that's a role that our board could play. I don't know. Again, this comes back to zoning. We're not a zoning board. I see you shaking your head, Laurel. So yeah, it's kind of complicated, but as somebody who, wants to see marijuana business growth have some pretty strict limits within us, this particular thing does seem unfair, especially if alcohol businesses and all other licensed businesses can't get this non-conforming use protection tied to the location. So for what it's worth.
Did you want to comment, Laurel?
Yeah, I was just nodding in agreement that it is more of it's a overall planning non-conforming use is their decision. So again, it's a city council change or planning department change, planning board change. But it doesn't mean you can't recommend something if that's what you want to do. Of course, city council again has heard some of this before. So it's up to you guys if you want to bring it up.
Evan? Or Robin, your hand is still up, but
I was just going to remind everybody that everything we do here is recommendations. So if we recommend that they consider something they never got a chance to consider in 2018, I don't think we're doing any harm. So
Howard, Alana?
I have a clarifying question for Laurel. It's kind of like Kate's question, but the suggested wording change is in the marijuana section of the code. So are you saying that it's ineffective without a change somewhere else also in the code, like in the zoning table?
Yeah, you'd still have to address the non-conforming use part of it. And so because it touches multiple different parts of the code, that's why it's a city council change. And of course, any changes to the marijuana code have to be recommended up to city council anyway. So
yeah.
Did I answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And with that in mind, I'm definitely supportive of getting this to council. It seems like it's been like a can kicked around, and everybody, whether it's council or planning, saying, it's not my job. I'm happy to say that, in as much as we can do, we should make this recommendation and stop, trying to kick the can down the road, but to inspire some kind of collaboration towards a solution.
Michael?
Yeah, to Alana's point of kicking the can down the road, Laura, my question to you is going to be, are we just spinning our wheels, making a recommendation to council on this issue, or is this something that Jeff should be petitioning the planning board to make these changes? It seems to me
yeah,
like
and I know there's some history. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know there's some history there. I think he maybe already did get to the planning board or propose it to council, and council just didn't discuss it in an open meeting. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. There is some history in your packets from last month, I believe, that just kind of talks about some of the planning board background. So I think Jeff has approached both of those entities before. Sorry that I don't know the full depth of what exactly that situation was, but it sounds like, yes, that would be, planning board is an option, but it sounds like maybe you already tried that option. So this was the next option.
Laurel, do you think that you or Kathy could go to city council and ask them, like, is this appropriate for us to be making a recommendation on this issue? And at least then they could, if they say no, Jeff should be going to planning board, then at least Jeff knows who he should be petitioning, as opposed to petitioning us if council's not going to listen to whatever recommendation we make on this issue.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a normal process that we would go like ask council in advance of, if it's something that we should recommend, since the board I advise doesn't do the same recommendation process. So what I could do is ask Kathy if she would be willing to do that when she gets back and see what she says.
Or it would just be nice for us to have some clearer direction on how do we address this. I mean, is this something that we should be taking up, or is this something that we should not be taking up?
Yeah, well, and again, it's the Title IX stuff is outside of your purview. So that part, and it's not something underneath your authority, but asking council to do something is within your purview. So it's kind of up to you whether you want to use that or not. Since council chose not to address this in a public meeting, maybe that is kind of a decision, though they had like information and memos on the background of it, so they knew about what was going on. So it's more of a political question, I think, than a legal one, if that's helpful or not.
Kate, you had your
I know,
hand.
not really.
You're good.
Yeah, but I can ask, if you want me to, I can ask Kathy to see if council would be willing to talk about it, or ask council that.
I just think it would be nice for us to know and for the public to know, because I mean, Jeff's been talking to us about this issue for a long time.
Yeah.
And I still feel like, at least from my perspective, I don't have a clear understanding. Like, are we, I don't want to say wasting our time, but is it something that council is even going to consider? Or are we going to send up a recommendation and council's going to say, well, this isn't within Cloud's purview. Jeff needs to go to planning board, or needs to go to some other board. So it'd be nice if we had some direction from council as to how, is this something that we should be taking up?
Yeah, and it sounds like, so I got some information. It sounds like it sounds like Kathy doesn't go and ask council. It sounds like you either recommend it or you don't. So you can either ask council or not, and then council can either say yes or no, or go a different direction.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So sorry about the delayed clarity, but
It's a little clear that it's unclear.
yeah. So it's either you decide if you want to recommend a change or not, and then recommend it to council, then council can decide what they want to do.
Kate.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think a lot of times we want to know a little bit more of what council wants from us, right? In terms of what they want us to recommend or not. I think from my perspective, from MAP and from this, like I think that if it touches cannabis businesses or the community because of cannabis, I think that we should discuss it. And then I think if we were to ask or recommend that this be taken up by city council, we could also just say, if not us, if not planning board, like then who, right? Like we could have a recommendation that says that, like, well, who should be discussing this? And if it's city council, then great. But the recommendation could be, something of that sort. But when I think about whether we can talk about it or discuss it, it is if it's touching cannabis businesses, because this is the forum for that, for the community.
And
at least the starting point.
MAPS did bring this up to council. It was in some of their memos to council in 2018, just so you know. But then they chose not to. Yeah.
Stacy.
I see value in just passing on the recommendation, even if it isn't directly in our purview. Like, it does at least touch on the work we do. So if all or most of us feel that this is something that should be considered, it probably makes sense just to pass that information to council, even if we're not the ones necessarily where it actually would be our recommendation. If we all are saying, hey, this kind of seems unfair, or, maybe you should be reconsidered, I don't see the harm in saying that and passing that information to council.
Evan?
I would definitely agree. I don't think there's any harm in passing it on, but I kind of have a technical question. It was something that came up during the planning for the retreat, but we never got to discuss it. In the case, I'm really kind of trying to get to get a little further down the path of where this board compares to the Beverage Licensing Authority. Now, I know that the Beverage Licensing Authority is a quasi-judicial board, and I know that that subject was brought up about whether or not we were interested in having CLAB move forward as a quasi-judicial board. Would it be possible, Laura, for you to speak a little to what that process would look like? And is that something that we would choose to do? Is that something that council would choose to do? And in that case, I would assume if we did become a quasi-judicial board, I guess in furtherance of that question, would this question fall into our purview?
Yeah, those are really great questions. So in order to become a quasi-judicial, and the Licensing Authority Board has always been quasi-judicial because they oversee what we call show causes. So different kinds of things. And Krista can jump in if you want to. But in order to do that, we would have to have a council ordinance change in order to make you quasi-judicial. This still is in Title IX, which is under the land use planning side of things. So I'm not sure. I still think that it would not fall under your purview without some sort of ordinance change. Krista, did you have more to add?
Yeah, thanks, Laurel. So the charter for CLAB actually does include quasi-judicial within 2 years of incorporation. So council's already given CLAB the ability to transition to quasi-judicial through that charter. And it's up to you all as a board when you're ready to take that on. What we were hearing in the past was that you wanted to get through hospitality first before taking on the additional quasi-judicial role. But that's not set in stone, and you all can revisit that whenever you're ready, since that has already been included in the charter. And at some point, when you do start moving in that direction, we'll need to have some conversations about the scope of the quasi-judicial role that you want to have, what types of applications you want to have hearings on, and all of that. Then we can talk a little bit about how the liquor board currently does it and see if you want to follow that example or do something different.
Yeah, that was my understanding. What is the timeline? What does that 2-year window look like? Do we have a date certain that decision needs to be made by?
So that has come and gone. We're already past 2 years of incorporation, so that 2-year mark has already passed.
But we could probably ask council to do a small ordinance change if we need to. And again, this whole Title IX thing that Mr. Guard brought up is still outside, whether you're quasi-judicial or not.
Thank you.
Michael?
Tom, I'm gonna shut off my video, but I'll still be on audio for probably at least another 45 minutes. But when I cut out, I'll let you know when I walk away.
So just a quick question before you leave. If we have a vote of some kind in the next 5 to 10 minutes, can you reappear?
Yep.
Or will you reappear?
Yep. I'll be listening. I just I've got to take care of some errand stuff around the kitchen, but I'm sitting here with my computer on and the audio's on. So I'm listening.
Okay, Kate.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw something out there that if we did make a recommendation for something like this, we would potentially have more clarity on what city council thinks is okay with us recommending or not. Because it's possible that we give the recommendation and then they say, this is, thanks, but we don't really want this. So maybe if we do that, we could get more clarification just by doing it. I think sometimes we end up talking about whether we should do something and maybe there's already agreement or some kind of like testing of the waters of where everybody feels like it should be and whether it's fair or not to have this kind of thing, that it maybe just be faster for us to make a motion, take a vote and move on.
So Evan, in one of your 4 things that you've been playing together to put motions together, is this one of them, or is those are 4 different things?
Unfortunately, no. This is not one of them. This is something I do feel very passionately about. This very nearly affected me very significantly. So I can say that this is something that can ruin businesses over a clerical mistake. And it's just, we've got more than one example in this city, and it's something that should be fixed. We would never allow any other reasonably reputable business to suffer the fate of a clerical mistake or a mailing issue that then results in the loss of a multi-million-dollar business. And it's happened many times in this city. So it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And we should make a recommendation to give businesses the benefit of the doubt when it comes to clerical errors that lead to removal of licensing. And I think the case-by-case situation, and Robin, I really do appreciate you coming to the side of the industry on this one, because I think it is unfair, and it's unnecessarily unfair. And it was complicated in the past, but we've gotten past the lack of clarity for this industry. This leaves the waters very murky for something that is not murky for any other business. So we should make the recommendation that we support Mr. Guard's recommendation to allow non-conforming uses to be reconsidered, as opposed to making it a objective license removal. And it's not a license removal. Let me be very clear about what happens. It requires a brand new application. So they basically say, the city says that if you miss one of these dates, or if you miss something, or there is an issue with your license and a lapse occurs, you start from 0. And the city basically goes into the position that you never existed and you have to start brand new. And that's just not an appropriate way to regulate this. There's methods we have for other industries, and we should apply them here.
Alana, you had your hand up and just took it down.
Yeah, I mean, I have a motion, but I kind of want to make it better. So I'm just going to keep working on it.
Well, so just for clarity, on page 9, the paragraph after the Q&A, Jeff proposes a change to the Boulder Revised Code. That's how it's a matter of fairness to all city businesses. We propose a change to the Boulder Revised Code. Laurel, is that spelled out enough to use as a motion?
Yeah, what page are you looking at? Sorry, I'm looking at the
Page 9 of the reading packet. It's the paragraph right after the Q&A.
Sorry, my computer is just now loading this page. Okay. Okay, so it could be a good section, because he's focusing specifically on section 6. Let's see. Okay, so my hesitation, sorry, I'm taking a minute here. So under the authority of the Cannabis Licensing and Advisory Board in our Boulder Revised Code, says the advisory board shall not involve itself in any review under land use regulations Title IX, unless its opinion is requested by the city council or the planning board. So I think we have to be careful with any changes to Title IX because of that restriction. But here it shows that there's some proposed changes to subsection 6, 616(7).
I was going to bring this up earlier, but that's the specific thing that is different here, because section 6, which is 614, is the marijuana code. It makes reference to the land use code, which is Title IX. Jeff and I have discussed this in the past. This is because there's a cross reference there. We're not suggesting you change the land use code. We're suggesting that we change the 614. So
yeah, to make
where
it
does the land
clear.
use code apply according to 614 of the BRC? So I think we could make a recommendation, and I don't think that it would be conflicting with our charter.
So Alana, maybe you're working on the same thing, but one way to do this would be just to recommend the city council to take Mr. Guard's proposal as written. Into
Under consideration. They're going to consider it, and they're going to change the language one way or the other. We can probably just make the recommendation to consider Mr. Guard's language for modifications to 614 and 616.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
I would just go a little further and add, and engage other boards and commissions as required to effectuate the change in other sections outside of club's purview. To say that our recommendation is not only to consider Guard's recommendation for the marijuana ordinance 614.7 and 616.7, but also to engage planning if required to update their section. So if you want me to
just be careful with that, because again, that restriction about Title IX. Just be careful about how you word it.
Then can we request that it be brought to planning to comply or to align with recommendations for the cannabis regulatory or the cannabis section? Essentially, we certainly aren't, we have no purview, we have no authority to change Title IX, but we can certainly request a review by land use to make sure that we have consistency between the two sections.
Yeah, there's nothing saying you can't do that. So I think it's up to you guys.
That those inconsistencies have created most of the issues with land use and marijuana licensing in the past 10 years. So if we can just get those two aligned, it's going to eliminate a lot of issue down the line.
And like Member Thompson talked about, maybe this is an opportunity to get more clarity from the council on what exactly you're allowed to reference that's, you know, not specifically prohibited in your charter.
Okay. Robin?
Would the city staff, the drafting staff, or whoever helps get language together be willing to look at the suggested wording change in the policy suggestion form and interpret a little bit and come back to CLAB with language that, you know, is solid and you know, that they feel like we could send to city council, as well as this idea of getting the boards involved where it makes the most sense. And then we could forward that to city council, because I'm just not super confident, you know, sending something through that hasn't been vetted by a staff writer.
In terms of the motion that you're all are discussing, I did write some verbiage down based on what our discussion, and I'm happy to share the screen that you're able to see and see if you're in agreement with for a proposed motion, and then you can certainly move forward if that's something that you're looking for, Robin, right now.
Let's take a look, John.
Sure.
By the way, in case anyone hasn't noticed, John is still with us. And I told John the other day that I greatly appreciate that you know, we miss him when he's not here. So
I appreciate that very much. I will be here, of course, for this the rest of this meeting. Just kidding, I'm leaving in 1 minute. No, that's not happening. We'll finish this meeting, and then I'll also be here for the January 9th meeting as well. But I have shared my screen, and I'm happy to read it aloud. What I have is a motion to.
Can you increase the font? The double the size of that font?
Sure, you got it. Okay.
That's
sure. So it says a motion to propose a recommendation to City Council to change the Boulder Revised Code, and I put the two parts of the code that we've been referring to provide marijuana businesses to use grandfathering protections like those provided to all other use types, including annexed marijuana businesses. Also to request a review by the Land Use Board regarding this change.
all right. Keep that up on the screen. Either Is there anyone on the board that has concerns about the way that is written? And I almost want to check in with Jeff to see, does that cover the bases he's concerned about?
Although the verbiage is directly from his policy suggestion form,
Okay.
like where it says to provide marijuana businesses, I essentially copied and pasted it and just reworded the sentence to make it sound like a motion.
Okay, Kate.
I was just going to say that, to change it says the Boulder Revised Code, those sections don't exist. These are what would be added as new subsections. So I just wanted to clarify that these aren't things that he's stating to change the language of. He would be adding a subsection to that section.
Modify the Boulder Revised Code?
You're amending it if you're going to be specific.
Also, John, just as like a minor thing, I think it's the planning board, not the land use board.
Sure.
That's just what the city calls it.
And you spelled amend wrong, but that's okay.
Oh, thank you. I was working on that. And then since those are proposed, the code changes just for verbiage, we can just include that.
Okay, Michael?
I would like you to keep those sections. You can get rid of the final section, but please make reference to 614 and 7, 616, 7. Yeah, so F5 can go away and E9 can go away. Those sections still should remain.
Nice.
Michael?
Yeah, Tom. So my read of this, and John, I appreciate you putting this together. My read of this is that CLAB is proposing the change, which I think is a presumption. I can support this language if it says a recommendation to City Council to consider amending, but the way that it's currently worded, it's as if we're proposing the change.
I'm comfortable with saying council to consider amending revised code. I think that clarifies what our actual purview is. We can't tell them to do anything, but we can certainly ask them to consider.
Do you, Michael, how would you feel about appending Jeff's letter and, the information that we were given, appending that and maybe even referring to it?
I don't think it's appropriate to refer to it, but I have no problem attaching that to this recommendation.
Okay. Laura?
Hey guys, sorry. The last sentence I think still goes against the section under the CLAB, like what's allowed under CLAB. It says the advisory board shall not involve itself in any review under the land use regulations, unless its opinion is requested by city council or planning board. I think the way it's phrased, it still says you're trying to direct planning board, and I don't think that that's allowed under current language.
Would it be possible to say also to request a review by any appropriate city authority?
Well, that still is directing the planning board. That's still your intent. But I think if council were to make these changes or allow these changes to be made, then they would have the planning board look at it. So I don't know that it's a necessary sentence.
I think if we append Jeff's information, it will speak for itself. And then we don't need the second sentence, the last sentence.
Yeah, and his language refers to Title IX too, right? So.
How does everybody feel about that?
I can certainly read it again if people are having trouble looking at it.
What was the term, Evan, pre-contemplated or pre-discussed amendments or pre-discussed motions?
I think this is what I was referring to. But.
Yes.
I have to say that I much more strongly support this with the language suggesting a consideration of land use. We're not telling them what to change, but I think that if this falls on deaf ears, knowing full well that this is a consideration that needs to be made because we have one section of our code that's referencing a completely isolated section. I mean, everything in this code, everything in 614 references other sections of the city code. I'm not saying that we should change our land use code, and I believe the intent of our charter not covering land use is related to the location of businesses, but it's not related to the licensing of businesses. We are being told to discuss and contemplate and make recommendations related to licensing of businesses, not land use, not where they're allowed to be, but who they're allowed to be. And that's what we're making a recommendation for here. If the land use code is preventing an otherwise capable business from operating in a location where they have always operated, this should be a recommendation we have no problem with. We can recommend, we're not telling them to change it, but we can certainly say, hey, council, please look at this. And if this is logical, then there may be other places in the code you have to modify.
Laurel?
Yeah, I would just go back again to the language underneath the collab. It says the advisory board shall not involve itself in any review under the land use code. So again, it's like in any sort of situation with the planning board. That's why I recommended deleting that sentence.
Alana?
Yeah, I hear what everyone's saying, and I think that we can, that it's very, very clear that it's a motion to propose a recommendation, which is in our purview. And if we need to make reference of other activities that need to be done in context of this, I think that's only going to be helpful. There's obviously been a great deal of confusion around who needs to begin this process. So I think us kickstarting it and then also pointing to the next, the other areas that need to be explored is makes for a great motion. So I thought the language was good.
Without the additional.
I think it's much better with it because it addresses the reality, which is that this is incomplete without further work being done. And specifically, I guess, I think the reason why I'm particularly on this wanting to include it is because in the past, this might have gone to council, but never went past council. It didn't go beyond council to the next step. And so if we submit this recommendation as it's written, we're actually repeating something that's been done. If we point to what needs to be done next, we stand a better chance at actually getting this, getting the fulsome action intended through this motion completed.
Kate, I'll come back to you in a second, but I do want to point out that I want to move on if we can, and I will call attention to the fact that Jeff's letter has already gone to the city council, but the fact that if we attach it as an appendix to whatever we vote on, it will have, I think it'll have adequate weight. But there's also, Kate, I'll let you go, but there's 4 people we haven't heard from. Go ahead, Kate.
I'll wait until other people have a chance to speak if they want to about it.
So you want to call them out, Kate, or you want me to call?
No, I was just wondering whether it's the term review that we're really like the fact that the planning board needs to review it if we request for consideration or to be brought up, or to be sent on, or like is the term review that is part of the problem? Or Laurel, is there anything that we can do to point to the next step that doesn't infringe on what you see as a conflict? Was going to be my.
Yeah, I think just because you're getting close to the Title IX like discussion and trying to direct, you're not trying to direct planning board, we're recommending planning board review over things. I think it just flies against what your authority is. So like the chair has said, like attaching the letter, it'll show you, and including this language does point to land use and will go to the planning board if they decide to move it forward. But I think I would just be careful around that because I don't want you guys get in trouble or to go directly against what your provision allows, your chartering provision allows.
Michael?
What, can I just ask a follow-up question? What would
Yeah.
be the follow-up if we did recommend something that was outside of our purview? Would they just shut it down?
Yeah, well, my recommendation is to, you know, as the lawyer, you should follow what the law says. Of course, the ordinances say, but yes, I think it would be, you know, either to shut down or to say like, hey, you guys, and then point to the ordinance. That might be,
Okay.
they would like send it back down, I would imagine.
Okay, thank you for
I don't know that this has happened before, so.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Michael? Your hand is up, Michael. I'm not. Oh, no.
Are you calling on me, Tom?
Yeah.
I got a roll. So are we going to vote on this language, or am I free to go?
If somebody calls for a vote and it's seconded, then we will vote.
So Laurel, can I preempt this by saying that I support this language if and when CLAB gets to the point of voting on this issue?
You have to be present in order to vote or make a motion,
Okay.
but you can make a motion.
All right, I'll move to vote on the language that is written in John's screen share.
I will move to second that.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All right, John, do you want to take a vote?
Certainly. Just to read it for the record, the motion proposed by Member Christie is a motion to propose a recommendation to City Council to consider amending the Boulder Revised Code BRC 6-14-7 and BRC 6-16-7 to provide marijuana businesses use grandfathering protections like those provided to all other use types, including annexed marijuana businesses. And then Member Anderson seconded this motion. And then for a roll call vote, Member Anderson?
Yay.
Member Christie?
I support the motion.
Member Green?
I support the motion.
Member Keegan?
I support the motion.
Member Kunzman?
Support.
Member Malone?
Support.
And Member Noble?
I support the motion.
Thank you very much. Motion passes 7-0.
Unanimous, guys. Look at us.
We should have more retreats. You know, it's all about the retreat. You know, we pulled together quite a team on that retreat day. Allison, oh, you're clapping. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, I think we're ready. It's
Tom,
fun.
I gotta go.
All right, thank you, Michael.
All right, thanks, you guys.
So we can either take a break now, or we can start in on issue number 5, hospitality. I'm thinking it's a logical place to take a 10-minute break. How's that sound? I see at least 2 thumbs up. 3, that's a 4. Okay, that's pretty, almost 5, almost unanimous. Oh, double thumbs. Okay, that's like 7 now. DTU, double thumbs up. All right, let's re-adjourn at 4:42.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have quorum. So back to something we have discussed before. Alana, did you figure out? Were we talking about the same things? Alana and I bounced messages back and forth.
Oh, probably, yeah, the document that came through.
Yeah. I mean, there are some places one could choose not to have two sides of. I don't remember if any of the votes were unanimous. There may be no position in opposition.
There were some that were unanimous, yeah.
I kind of like this, and the fact that this article came through about the same time, the one about the 10-year anniversary. I talked about the four things for legalization and 4 things against.
That writer was genius.
All right, so how would you like to continue? People had, on our last discussion, people had concerns as to whether we should start anew, use the existing document.
I have a question about that because I thought that Allison, coming out of our retreat, maybe I misunderstood this, was going to create a new document that we were going to be able to write to. Did I mishear that?
I thought so too, and I got an email actually just earlier from Allison, so maybe I don't know if that's it. I haven't had a chance to open it, but it was CLAB hospitality motions, so I'm not sure if that's it. Allison, maybe you can tell us.
Yes, that was it. And sorry for the delay. Since I've seen y'all, my son was back in the hospital, so it's been a wild couple weeks. But he's home now, so things are good. So yeah, I think so. After the retreat, put into this Google Doc. So Kristen had shared with me the document that folks were initially editing, and that's what the top of this is with the chart. And then there's a lot of words in the middle that has like the explanation of every vote and discussion. And then at the very end are the bullets from the summary that started the document that was made before with the like support and oppose. It's just those same things. And so my thought was that you didn't want the middle part, you just wanted the top and the bottom, but I didn't want to delete that middle part because that's what was in that document that that city staff had initially created.
So everybody probably hasn't had a chance to look at this. John, does John and or Kristen have access? It's 9 pages.
I have not seen this document and I have not seen it come through my email.
Was Kristen included or?
I can't open the document because I think it's a Google Doc, right? Allison, is that the one that you tried sharing with me? So my city email doesn't have a Google account link to it, so I'm not able to open the document and view it.
Could we have Allison share it so that everybody could see it just for the presentation?
For the public too. Yeah.
So at this point in time, it wasn't a read only for the public either. Is that correct?
So it was my understanding walking out of the retreat was that I was going to make it and then share it individually with folks who are on the board and share it with city staff, even though they can't read it, but it's shared with them.
As long as you're not emailing it to everybody and having a group discussion about it.
It was individual to each person.
Perfect.
Or through Google individual emails.
If we put it on the Jamboard, the public can view that, correct? Laurel?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know the background of the Jamboard other than I know we've had discussions about it, but usually there's public access to the Jamboard. Kristen may know a little bit more about the technicals behind that. It sounds like what Allison was doing was sending it to individuals to take a look at before bringing it to the public. But again, we have to be really careful about open meetings laws.
Right, that's what I'm trying to be.
Believe I set it so that the link can be shared, can be seen by everyone, but only edited by the folks that I sent it to.
Yeah, that's perfect. So then you could put that link on like the Jamboard or something.
Yeah, so maybe John, or if you could check that maybe, because I emailed it to you to see if it worked. Because if you can edit it, then that means I did it wrong.
Kristen, I just sent it to you.
And did you, and I'm sorry, Chair, and Allison, you sent it to my Eastlos J at Boulder, Colorado. Is that correct?
I did.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, we need it to be open to the public, right? If you're going to be editing it, because then it creates a meeting. So if we could have some sort of link or something so the public can see it, that'd be great.
What we've done in the past is took the link and included it in the packet so members of the public could follow along with this conversation. So that might be something that we want to do for the next meeting instead, just to be fully transparent in the process.
Certainly. And for me, like Kristen mentioned, as I do not have a Google account with the city, I can't open the document.
Yeah, and the reason that there's not Google accounts, you're probably wondering why we can't access Google with our city accounts, is that there's a security issue with Google and our city accounts. So IT doesn't let us have like the Google connection, just so you guys know.
So for both, I didn't do it to Laurel yet. For both John and Kristen, I just cut and paste to your email. So it's not in the Google document at that point.
Sorry, what are you cutting and pasting?
Allison's work.
Oh, like into another document?
Just an email to John separately and Kristen separately. So they could put it into the Jamboard, right? You guys can enter into the Jamboard, can't you?
I think the issue is once people start editing it, then other folks need to be able to see it, not just what's there right now.
That's why it's in the Jamboard, then everyone, all of us can edit it and public can see it. Am I correct there, John or Kristen?
I think so, but they can't look at it to check. But
you sure? That's why I thought the Jamboard was created.
I'm not familiar with that functionality of the Jamboard. The way we've used it in the past was to vote on things and to kind of use the sticky function. I haven't used it before for like editing a document. What we did last time was we edited it in SharePoint, and then we made that SharePoint document visible to the public and included the link to the document in our packet. So anyone that wanted to view it could open the packet, view the link, and get into the document that way.
Oh.
And that provides notice to the public. So that's like the safest way under the open meetings law to have it in the packet with some sort of link.
Well, then you could cut and paste it into SharePoint. If I'm hearing you correctly.
Yes, and I believe regardless of your email address with SharePoint, you would have the ability to make edits to like anyone can view it read only, but certain people can make it into a have the ability to edit. And as we're discussing, I could do that right now, and then send the emails individually to all of you so that you would have access. Is that something that I would be able to do right now, Laurel, or is that something I have to wait until after the meeting?
I think as long as the public has access to what you're talking about, it's okay.
Certainly.
So however you figure out how to do that, yeah.
Sure.
So
Sure.
the safest way, of course, is to get it in the packet for next time. too.
Absolutely, absolutely. But based on previous discussions, you were talking about using time to make edits in real time using meeting time. Is that correct for my assumption, Chair?
That was one of the things we discussed, yeah.
Certainly. So give me a few moments and I will get this sorted. I should have this hopefully no more than 5 to 10 minutes. I can work on that quickly.
And then while he's working on that, Kristen, maybe, so the SharePoint, we would just all need the link.
So I thought that the reason why you wanted a Google Doc was because the SharePoint OneDrive situation was not working for people.
Yeah, it wasn't working for me.
It did not work for me either.
Riawala, you look like you wanted to say something.
Well, SharePoint does provide issues for outside people. I don't know if it's the best avenue to use in an open forum like this. Some of you may not be able to access it. Some of the public may not be able to access it. And as Laurel stated, I will defer to her, of course. The safest bet would be to get this back into the packet and then have your discussion at that time. Unless everybody knows of a better medium to use that is interactive and safe, I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
I mean, in the interim, could you just have someone share their screen to show the document and then have it in the next meeting packet? And we
Great
just
plan.
discuss, because we're just discussing the format right now. Obviously, we wouldn't necessarily be able to edit it, but we could discuss it or
I
take
believe
our
that's
own
what John's doing.
individual.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
That's
initially
what I
going
was
to put it into SharePoint, but based on this discussion,
Okay.
I can just share my screen and we can have the information right
Got
now.
it. Oh, okay. I didn't catch that part. I
Sure.
just thought you were just doing the SharePoint thing.
Gotcha.
Can you make the text a little bit bigger? Is that possible?
Let me try.
I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Small.
You might have to highlight all of the text.
Let me transfer this to a Word document.
So the first part, sorry, y'all, the first part came from the Word document that was right from what Kristen sent me. It's
Gotcha.
the only. So if that is easier to start with that, and then, because the piece that I added was just the bullets at the end.
The bullets at the end? Okay.
Mhm. But I think Kate's right about just figure out the format that y'all want.
Okay, so as I have this section on display, would you like me to scroll down to the bullet points or would you like to view this section up here?
Well, let's just go slowly and make sure that there's no errors.
Certainly.
Yeah, it looks like there might be one error that Robin noted.
Robin?
Sorry, I just was looking on, I'm on the, sorry, this is kind of hard. So it's on the Google Doc. The 5/2/22 note to exempt licensed social consumption businesses from the Clean Indoor Air Act. I don't think that's correct. I mean, I didn't vote yes on that. something's off there because,
I'm going to open up the minutes and see.
okay.
I do see it here. It says that is the language. Only if ventilation systems ensure non-consuming customers, workers, and first responders are safe from the health impacts of secondhand smoke. I think it just didn't have the full.
Yeah, and I think that context is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate.
So that can be a cut and paste, John.
Certainly. So could you read that verbiage to me again? Okay.
Sorry, I moved away from it. Let me just. Okay, the board recommends the city of Boulder exempt licensed social consumption businesses from the Boulder Clean Air Act only if ventilation systems ensure non-consuming customers, workers, and first responders are safe from the health impacts
Hold
of
on.
secondhand smoke.
It's catching up to you.
Okay. Only if ventilation systems ensure non-consuming customers,
Comma, workers, comma, and first responders. Forgot I could see you typing. Are safe from the health impacts of secondhand smoke.
thank you very much.
Mhm.
And just for what it's worth, the act is the Boulder Clean Indoor Air Act.
One more time, Robin?
See in the second line where it says Boulder Clean Air Act?
Yes.
It's the Boulder Clean Indoor Air Act.
Thank you. Okay, so is it starting from here, August 2nd, 2021, or are we considering scrolling down to the specific bullet points that you're referring to, Allison?
So I think that the question is for the group of what you wanted the next part of the document to look like. If you want all the context that's in all that text that was in that initial summary from Kristen, or if you want it to be more focused on the motions, and then like we talked about at the retreat, the like different people sharing the reasons why they voted the way they voted.
I thought I recalled discussion around there being like listing the motions, the outcome, and then all the remaining columns in the table being a board member's place to attribute a bullet or a sentence or a couple sentences to that vote. So each member would have a cell in a table to insert a bullet, but that's my memory.
That was my memory as well.
I also recall that.
Okay, did we, I thought what we said was we were going to list the motion, the vote count, who voted which way, and then people would have an opportunity to provide up to 200 words of context. And not each person didn't have to provide 200 words. You could say, you know, I agree with the above, but it would give everybody an opportunity to make a comment. That was what I understood. It's just slightly different from one cell or one sentence.
Yeah,
But the
actually, I
above
think
stuff,
a little
go ahead.
I think it was left a little unclear because she said a bullet and some people might assume that's, 2 sentences, max 3 sentences. But then I do recall you talking about 200 words. I've written my responses. I've written no comment on several. My response tends to be around 100 words, between like 50, but most commonly around 100.
Is that ready for prime time yet? Alana?
What do you mean, sharing here? I might want a little more time to just proofread. I did it today.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if it was due or not. I thought it was kind of like due today, actually.
Someone has some background noise.
I think I fixed that. Sorry about that. My bad.
Okay.
So it sounds like folks some folks want to put their perspective up in that chart and just add some cells to it for the explanation.
Yeah, so
or maybe put it down here.
We
But
would
it sounds
just,
like folks were thinking about the cells at the top, so adding more rows to those at the top.
Were you all thinking it would just be one table then? And then all of the information that would be shared would be the one table? For those that thought that that was the...
I would advocate for whatever has the easiest readability.
I thought maybe there was mention of doing like a cover page where it's just like the straight basics, not with each of our, comments. And then, that way that's kind of like real clear right on top. And then the next pages would include kind of the same, just what Alana just described, but then an area for our comments. So it kind of just gives like a cover sheet, I guess. Maybe I'm imagining that though. It's very possible.
I mean, if we just flipped the bullets that we can see right now on John's screen, if that was the top and then the chart was underneath that, that would accomplish that. What Stacey just said. And people could add rows underneath each one if they, for their comments. It would be a pretty long chart and maybe not the most readable, but it might be a good place to start.
Well, the way you have it written as is now, it's 2 pages that summarizes every motion.
In the section in the middle from staff, you mean? Or this one, the one that we're looking at now?
I just cut and paste the one you put up.
I think that from what I'm understanding, Allison, you added the kind of the notes piece of it because it's context, right, for each of the discussions. But that might not be what we include in the final document. Is that correct?
Yes, that came right from Kristen and what was the original document, but it sounded like between that original document being created and the conversation we had, folks may not have wanted that, but I didn't want to delete it because I wasn't sure if that's where people were landing.
Got it. So for now,
I felt like the
summary
middle was not what you wanted, that it was too much for what y'all wanted. And maybe what you want is this bulleted summary first, and then the further explanation underneath it with everyone's specific points.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Allison, for providing all that and moving Kristen's information over. But I do think that what we've talked about is getting as concise as possible while making sure everybody feels that the full argument was represented in the document that goes forward. So I think the middle part of your document we don't need. I feel like the chart gives a good, kind of cover page kind of thing, Stacey, that might work to just give a summary of what the motions and the votes were. And then where you've got this bulleted list, people could provide commentary on that. And again, not every person has to write, a full paragraph or whatever. You can agree or make a comment on what somebody else has written. So. And just for what it's worth, I mean, if Alana's written her comments, Brian has written, I believe, most of his. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, that earlier document from before the retreat, I had sort
Yeah.
of.
And I've done a version which you all seen, but maybe what we could do the next iteration of this is to put those things together and then give the rest of the board the ability to write more or to agree or disagree with those positions.
I just thought we kind of wanted to not have to sign off on each other's blurbs, and that's why we got where we did. Was to just kind of be able to have our final last word and attribute our name to only our words and then send it off.
That is definitely what I recall as well, that we were each gonna have the opportunity under our name or next to our name to write our comments. But it wouldn't be like all together, right? Like it would just be separate by our names.
Yeah, I think we're actually saying the same things. I think the only nuance there is that you could, if you saw somebody else's comments and you were completely in line with them, your comment could simply be, I agree with member Keegan, or, I see this differently and this is my reason why. So you would have the opportunity for everything to say your input, but you wouldn't necessarily have to do that.
And I think like Alana was saying, there were a couple, she just wrote no comment. I think that's the same idea. Like you could just say no further comment or whatever. Like if you don't have anything to say on something.
I think we're in agreement.
One thing we'll just have to make sure is that there's some public way for the public to view your comments as you're adding them. So we'll have to work on that from the staff side.
Would you still like to have this on display, or would you like me to stop sharing? Or how would you like to proceed?
I'm not sure there's any benefit. I don't know, does anybody find any benefit in having it on screen share right now?
I just have a quick follow-up question from Laurel's comment. So do we have to make it public while we're each adding it, or is there like, could we each email city staff with our comments and then it'd be added? I'm just trying to.
You could definitely do it that way, like send it all to Kristen to have and John and have them put it together into the next packet. One thing though that I heard, and I could be wrong about this, is that you may want to comment back and forth on each other, adding comments to somebody else's comments. And in that case, you would want, in process comments to be available to the public, because it is technically a meeting if you guys are commenting back and forth in a different form, talking to each other. Does that make sense?
Would removing that make this easier for everyone then? Like if we just send our comments and they go next to our name, if you don't have anything to add, you just simply say no comment on that item. That way we don't have to worry about a public venue for the back and forth piece. I just don't know how useful it is, given what it sounds like is a bit of a tech challenge to, have to say, or to say, I agree with what Brian says, right? If I don't have any other comments, I could just say no comment.
And you could leave a space at the next meeting to add any additional comments. If you see somebody's that you like or something, you could say that in a public meeting.
Allison?
So I think I got it so that other people can see it, but they can't edit it. Kristen, you could just click on the link and see if it would. I just emailed it to you again. If it works now for you, you don't have to log in. You should just be able to see it. Because if that works, I just sent it to a colleague and she said it works for her. So if that works for you, Kristen, then we'll be in business.
Yep, that seems to be working. And what I think at this point is share that link with, like, maybe John can put it up on the screen. So if anyone here from the public wants to look at it with you, they could, and then we'll include the link in the packet as well.
Perfect.
Just a second, John, I'll send that to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry, I didn't realize just how locked down your Google access was. I thought you could see other things, but your IT department would be very proud.
And that is working for me.
Do we want to test it with the public? BS says yes. Works.
Good.
Okay, so that gives us it's kind of redundant letters, but an avenue and a venue. Does that sound correct? Someone put something in the chat. Oh, that's the, okay. Okay, so am I understanding correctly? If we each, I mean, some have already done it. If we each decide whether we have additional comments we desire making, that we could put into this document.
Forgive me if this is redundant, I have to step away for a second, but I noticed that there are multiple summaries in this document. Is there a spot where we have the particular language of the recommendation? Because it looks like we have summaries a couple different ways, but I believe there's some semantic importance here. So I want to make sure that we have the actual language that we passed, not just a summary of it.
Am I correct, Kristen, in assuming the summary of motions, that list is the actual language and then the chart is the, because obviously marijuana flower allowed was not the motion that was discussed. It was recommends that marijuana flower shall be one of the permitted types of products allowed, right? Is that is that true? Because I agree, there are some discrepancies between the two language in the summary of motions and the actual chart.
I will defer to Rewa if she's still on the call, because Rewa was actually helped put this together.
Rewa is here. She just went and took her dog out, so I don't know if she's back yet. She let me know. So when she gets back, I'll have her reach out to you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think however it goes, if we could just make sure that we have the particular language, if staff could make sure that that document gets that, just so just obviously the language and the wording of this matters. And while I appreciate the very, very concise language used here, that is definitely not the vocabulary we used for all of these. So if we can possibly get that particular language, I feel like this would help me significantly.
I think that's a really good point, Evan. And I wonder if instead of then having the additional perspectives in the chart, then maybe it's under the bullets where it's the very specific language.
Right. I can work with that.
I mean, maybe it could just be in both places, because it's not like that's that much longer and it is much more clear.
Well, unless the chart is meant to be a summary, then
But it's just, it's the motion language, and these aren't unwieldy, long sentences or paragraphs. I mean, and summarizing them in some cases, like the one we just fixed, could be very confusing.
I agree with Robin entirely. I would much prefer to just use the language that we used. What that's what we voted on. That's what we should be using. I appreciate everybody's summaries, but a summary, we are already summarizing hours and hours of conversation with these motions. So let's be particular with them, I think.
Yeah, and just this first one we have is not the language of the motion, because I know the language clearly said cannabis hospitality and sales establishments, which is correct. This language would be not correct.
I agree. It's super important to represent the exact language that was used because it can make a big difference.
So I guess that's a question for Kristen. Do we have the ability to have staff provide the exact language that we used in here so that we have an equivalent starting point?
Yes, absolutely. We can go through this document and update it with a little more detail, capturing the exact language of the motions.
So you don't have access to Google Docs, so you might have to send it to somebody to update it.
That's an excellent point. Thank you, Laurel.
Sorry.
John.
And if we just need the bulleted list, then that's pretty easy. Just send that.
Allison, would you be comfortable being the point person on this if I got those details to you? Can I send them to you to update in the document?
Sure, in the chart, yeah.
Thank you.
And then do folks want their extra explanation or with the exact language in the chart? Where do you want your extra explanation to go, under the bulleted list or in a chart? I don't really care, but y'all should agree before you do start to do it.
My thought was that there would be some sort of cover page, like I said, just to simplify it, like kind of like the chart does, I guess, with maybe using the exact language, then the votes and names, and then maybe the next pages would include our specific comments.
Yeah, I think as much as I live in spreadsheets, the concept of all of us making a column for comments is aesthetically displeasing.
I agree with that.
I think bullet points after the chart of the exact language with the vote count is probably our best bet.
Let's drop it back.
I'm just going to confirm. So the bullets are going behind the chart now. I'm going to change it right now.
I don't know. I thought the bullets were serving as a summary, as Stacy requested, which I think is a great idea.
But I think that on the summary, it should have the exact language, like that should be straight up first page. Here's the exact language of the motion. Here's how we voted and our names for voting. Then we could have our bullet point or however it's going to display our individual opinions like on the next sheets, not on that chart, the initial, or I don't want to use the word chart, that might get confusing, but on the initial cover page, you know, where we have exact words of motions. I don't think we need to then, like Evan's saying, also include comments on that. It's just going to get no longer clear. And like the whole point was like, that would be a cover sheet that's clear with that information. Then they could turn to the next pages if they want to see more about our comments.
Kate?
Just for over clarification. So the chart would go first. It would have the motion language, the exact language in the chart of the, you'd have the date, you'd have I don't know that we need the date, but you could have the actual motion language, the votes and who voted. And then below that, you would have the bulleted list with the exact same identical motion language. And then underneath there, we would each have our own bullet with sub bullets on what our our opinions are as we want to share them. Is that, I see nodding, but I just wanted to say it as I understood it.
Including ex officio members?
I think so. And I think it had come up in the past, like Evan had asked if he does, gets a line item, even if he wasn't present at the time. And I think doing it this way, where we have that cover sheet with the votes, makes very clear who was present and who voted. And then all the explanation, including ex officio members and Evan, if he wants to comment on these, would be there.
Take a guess.
And then
I would
Allison,
definitely like the opportunity to express a little bit of opinion about the majority of the things that were voted on before I became a part of the board. So yes, I do definitely want that option. So I would support the ex officio members having the same option to express their opinion regardless if their vote counted or not.
And I think that makes it real clear to council too, like, look, like on the cover page, they could just see straight up who voted, right? Like maybe one of the board members who is a voting member was absent or whatever one day. So they could see very clearly that information and then have all the rest of this for reference, in the packet.
Okay, so just to concretely clarify what you just said, that if I or Alana were not present for a vote, we could still comment on that issue.
I think you could just, Allison was about to write it. And she was, I think if you write non-voting member, and non-voting would be Allison, would be me, would be Evan when he wasn't on the board, it would be anybody that was absent from that meeting. And you could provide your perspective if you needed to or wanted to.
Okay, so just to,
If that's what I'm to understand, right? Like if we don't want that, that's a whole nother discussion.
John, is it possible for me to share my screen real quick?
I believe you are a co-host, which have that ability. Let me confirm.
It says that the host disabled it.
Gotcha.
okay, while you're trying to give her permission, what about if Ashley wants to comment, including things that she voted for or against, or even things that votes that occurred after her time on the board? And then for that matter, Rick.
Allison, are you able to try now?
If I remember correctly, Kathy did mention that it was just people that are currently on the board. That was my understanding of what she said last meeting, but if that's different, then.
I remember the same.
I remember the same thing too.
I think that we talked about this and that Kathy was very certain about that. It was not really an option.
Laurel, do you have a point of view on that?
I defer to Kathy. Yeah, if Kathy was certain about it, then I would defer to her.
Okay, so even if Ashley voted for or against something, she doesn't get a chance to comment. I don't think Rick was actually here for any of these votes, so it doesn't really matter with respect to, and I don't think we've had a whole lot of contact with him since he left town.
Can I ask a quick procedural question for you guys? So in order to have the exact language written from each of these motions, our staff is going to have to go back and listen to each of these meetings because our minutes did the summary, which is the summary you guys see here. So I'm curious as to what sort of timeline we're looking at for that. I don't know that we can do it, immediately, just because we're going to have to go back and listen to all of these meetings. So I just wanted to hear from you guys what your expectation is.
What I had heard was that folks are saying that this section was not clear enough, but this section was.
Yes, but it's also neither one is the exact language of the motions, because I've written down some of them throughout the course of time and they're not the same as so yeah, it's unfortunate.
I fret to bring up this proposal, but in reviewing all of the notes from the minutes prior to my joining in and reading everything that we have here, I would say that the language structure of the actual motions is sloppy and difficult and hard to understand. And it changes. I mean, you're going to have a hard time, even if you listen to that, Laurel, you're still going to have a hard time getting exactly what the vote is, exactly what the language is. And that concerns me. So I immediately have to come to the idea that these are very concise summaries. I do believe they represent the spirit of what we were attempting to vote on. Do we want to take the opportunity in January to have consistent language so that what we're presenting to council is a relatively formalized structure for how we make these motions? All of these are pretty darn close. What it would do is offer me an opportunity to vote on this. So I recognize that it's probably not what you guys want to do, but we also don't want to hand over the language that you're going to find when you listen to the transcript.
I have another question. Since we voted on the minutes for each, like to approve minutes at each meeting following, whenever these were made, Laurel, wouldn't that kind of mean we were all then agreeing, assuming we all approve the minutes, that that language reflects the motions close enough?
Yeah, I think you were agreeing to the summary of what the motion was. Not that it was the exact language necessarily, yeah, but that you were agreeing that that was the summary of the actions that you took at the previous meeting.
But you're saying this is like an immense job to like go back and like have to listen to all that. So it sounds like an immense job.
It will be an immense job, and that's why I was asking about timelines. It sounds like you guys can still comment on the, the bullet points summary, like comment on what's happening there, but it's going to take staff some time to listen to all of this.
Kate?
Yeah, I think because of that, I would say we should just keep what's here in the bulleted points, and each of us before the next, meeting, or, like we all look at them and make sure that we agree that this is what was voted on, and make comments on the things that don't align with what we think that everybody thinks was agreed to. As opposed to having them go through and try to hear what they were. Because at least we have a starting point here. I mean, it's obviously these are more detailed than the ones in the table. So the bullet points could at least be the starting point. And then second, I would recommend that in the future, the full motion language is in the meeting minutes. Because this is, I mean, I'm kind of surprised because I know that y'all document it and repeat it. Back, so I guess I thought it was verbatim documented somewhere, but because I don't want you guys, I don't want y'all have to go back and go through all of that. It's a lot. I mean, I think it's a lot of work.
I appreciate that sentiment, Kate, but I do believe that it is critical that we have the real language that we voted on. I know that it is work, and that's unfortunate, but it is, I believe, we are not doing anybody service if we're attempting to summarize something that we actually have specific language on. I mean, it's tough, but it's also pretty important.
Alana?
Specific language is what determines smooth operations from really, really messed up ones. I think it's worth making sure we do it correctly. And
I would say, like, if we agree on the language and there's no conflict among the members about the language of the motion, then we shouldn't make staff do that. Like if 9 people are nodding their head about the language of a motion, that it's good enough. For example, the first bullet, if it says opt in to state allowed cannabis sales and hospitality establishments, and we all agree, yes, then we shouldn't make staff do that. Also, I don't know if there would be much, unless there's some significant conflict around the language, going back and listening to the ones that failed may also not be worthwhile, since we're not actually passing those on to council. So I would be inclined to ask them to look into ones that we don't agree on for clarity.
Also, just really quickly, just want to jump in if it's okay, to Member Thompson's point, all boards and commissions give those like really simple minutes to make the turnaround a little bit faster for staff and things. So it's common practice in the city to not have the exact motion language, just so you know. That's why it was set up that way.
Thanks.
I agree. I'll go along with Alana here. If we don't have a lot of dispute, honestly, I think a lot of the bulleted summaries are really good. I just don't want to miss anything that's going to be contentious. But if it is, I think we should probably revert back to the minutes if necessary. But I don't see many of these that I'm going to immediately have any objection to. So if we want to adopt this language, I'm generally in support of that.
Alana, you still have your hand up.
Sorry, I'll lower it, but I mean, I did, one of my items I was gonna raise in matters for members was cleanup of the language, because there were some things I thought were odd. But I won't raise it because it sounds like we're just gonna clean it up as we go. But like the sentence at the end of the first bullet, the license would be governed by city laws applicable to all other marijuana businesses. Like obviously that wasn't in our motion. And I wanted to get some of those things cleaned up and out of there, but can we settle on what the next steps are going to be? Are we able to do this in between meetings, or how do we submit our words? Just dump them in here?
I thought that was the reason why it's created and what most of us can access.
But right now, or in between the meetings, or at the next meeting?
I would propose before the next meeting. Or even better.
And then we can include a link in the next meeting's packet so that it's open to the public.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Or we could even say, what's the due date for the next package? Reading package? It's like 2 weeks from now, probably.
Yeah, other than that, we might have an extra week because the January meeting is going to be a week later.
I'm looking at that specific date.
Okay.
Also, as you guys add your comments, and I'd recommend putting your name in there so that the public and each other know who's talking.
So Allison, when I just did a little edit, does it say who does the edits?
I don't have it in a track changes thing right now. If there's something that maybe if you want to change, maybe add it as a comment. And if it's right next to, like, if you look at the first, let me try my screen again.
Allison, he can just do editing mode and then everybody's going to be able to see that he changed it. So Tom, on the top right of your screen, there's a drop down menu. You're probably making edits. You just want to be suggesting. And then
it's gonna get really ugly if everyone's doing track changes in there. So my suggestion is to add a comment if you want to edit something, if you're noticing some language rather than changing the language, and then to just put your comments where it says your name rather than do it in editing mode would be my suggestion. But if other members of the board feel differently, then I think the board can make that decision.
Yeah, to Allison, to your point, I think that editing means that you're just writing over things. And so you should use the editing mode when you're drafting your own content. Anytime you're touching any other content, you should be suggesting.
So
or
like,
making a comment.
So I think Alana.
I am just out of example.
Yeah, perfect example. Yeah.
And yes, so the reading packet for the next month meeting would be around December 22nd. So the due date would be Monday the 19th to gather information.
What about before the meeting packet? That's the
sure. Meeting packet would be the 5th. So would be presented on the 5th of January. So that would be information submitted by Monday, January 2nd.
That's actually a holiday too, so we might want to.
So then Tuesday, January 3rd.
Okay, Stacy or Kate, do you still have something to say there, Kate?
I was just gonna ask if somebody can, in an email to all of us, write, you know, these dates that we need to get this done whenever we figure that out, but also a quick reminder on how to properly not mess up the Google Doc would be really helpful to me, like whatever somebody was just explaining, like drop down, edit, that kind of stuff. Like if somebody could throw that into an email so I can look at that before I put in anything. I just want to make sure I'm not guilty of messing the document up somehow.
Who would be the most appropriate person to do that?
I mean, it sounds like relatively straightforward. So maybe like if one of this staff, maybe John, if you could just send an email saying, hey, here's the date you need to get it submitted for your comments, and here's how you put in your comments, as opposed to.
Except John can't even test.
Oh, darn. Well, I would volunteer, but I'm not. That's the problem, is I'm not confident that I know how to do this in the way we're talking about. So maybe somebody else.
I'm happy to take what's in this chart and do what I did for the first one for the rest of them. So that's where people can put their own comments, their own reasoning. And then if my suggestion is if you're editing somewhere else or you're adding something else, you do what Alana did and you add a comment to that.
Kate,
Those are just for like if you want to see the language revised or something like that, right? Okay, and then
yeah, or like Robin earlier noted when she noticed that the language made it so that wasn't something that she voted for, she put a comment there to flag it.
And how can somebody just quickly walk me through, and I'll just write myself a note, like how you do the comment versus actually, I know how to like put my comments into the document next to my name. I think I got that, but how do you get these other comments here? I haven't used this before.
If you take, so let's say you didn't like the word products, you just highlight it and this little plus right here. And then it adds a comment.
That plus down in the corner. Okay.
This little
Oh, I
blue
see
plus.
it. Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank
That's
you.
a good tutorial there.
Thank you.
And sorry, but Allison, just so you know, the public cannot see comments. So right now I'm on the document and I cannot see your example or Alana's strike out. So that would be the only problem of doing this your way, because I do agree with you, it's cleaner, but then the public wouldn't be able to see it.
So Bia, I made one simple edit. It used to say on top collab motions, and I added hospitality business. And I can see that.
I can see your edit and I see it on full, like regular. So it's not a suggestion. So you just made a regular edit to it, but I can totally see it.
Right, but she doesn't see that you edited it. She just sees the new content.
Yeah, I just see that it changed. I don't know that you did it. Well, if you did, Allison, if you want to click at the little pencil on the top right over there, you know, the under share. Oh, stop sharing.
But after, if people submit their comments to Allison and Allison does the editing, then the public should be able to see it.
But not who changed it, nor what was it before. So if you want to have like a full record of everything that changed and everything that who did it and when, then you need to do it on suggesting mode. And sorry, I know I'm not supposed to talk, but I just want to make sure that you guys know what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if staff could do that to see what the public can see, because you would have the same permissions as members of the public.
Like you want us
I
to
think-
show you what it looks like?
Certainly, like I can share
I mean,
my screen, which I
think that
haven't
makes I think
opened.
that makes sense to think about the way that it's commenting. And is there another way instead of comments? Do we want to workshop that somewhere else? And just have it be people are just writing where their name is, and so it's very clear who's saying it because you're just writing it next to your name. And then any of the other comments, maybe that goes to staff.
So you're saying, just to clarify, like there's all the bullets of the summaries, and then maybe do sub bullets that say, member Allison says blah 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 about this. But if there's any comments or changes, you want to send it to staff. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's what I was trying to say, to find a medium in between. Not
If we allowed the public to be commenters as opposed to just viewers, that would eliminate the need. So the three categories are editor, viewer, or commenter. If we made the public a commenter as opposed to just a viewer of this document, would that make it possible for Bia to see it? I recognize that it would also make it possible for her to comment, and any general person in the public could comment, but it would be tracking who that comment was coming from.
And I would
Is that
never
permission
comment, but I
modification
think,
possible?
yeah, I do think that solves this, Evan. And as far as I go, I will commit to not making any comments.
I recognize that this opens up this document to be commented on by the broad public, but
well, then
you don't need to tell everybody that we're doing it. I don't think that many people are going to be that interested in making comments on a working document for us. And if they are, then we have to come up with another way. But I feel like this is a solution that fixes this immediately, and we don't have to talk about IT anymore.
I mean, if you guys are comfortable with allowing, I can change the permission.
I'm certainly good with it.
I think it's okay. Anyone have concerns?
I mean, we can try it. It doesn't, people can't access the heart of the document and make changes to. We could try it, I guess.
Yeah, all they can do is make comments. So they can't actually change the meat of the document, but they can put in 1,000-word treatise on something we don't care about. And it would be annoying, but we can also ban them as soon as that happens. So
that's probably a pretty simple solution.
That's what I'm wondering, to Evan's point, is that allowable if somebody, whatever, does put something, a member of the public put something in there, can we delete it, or is that going against some open record stuff? It has to stay there.
We can block them on social media.
Sorry, I was asking Laurel. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I should have addressed that to Laurel.
You're actually, well, if you have a public facing social media page, you're actually not allowed to block them or like delete their comments or anything, because you're a public forum. So you're creating this public forum where the public can comment. For your personal social media, you can block them all you want. But so that's why, like, you personally probably, Evan, can go on and block people. For this, if you were to open it, it would create like a public record and you couldn't go in and delete somebody's comment. Unless they meet First Amendment standard. There's certain things that aren't protected by the First Amendment. So if somebody was putting something obscene, then we could delete it.
But that doesn't mean, Laurel, just to clarify, we wouldn't have to send those comments to City Council when the document was finalized. We just couldn't delete it from the working document, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Then again, like the live document thing, it might be better to do like the editing thing. I don't know. It depends on what you guys are comfortable with. But it sounds like Kathy has said previously that you guys weren't allowed to have it so that the public could comment on it. So I don't know. I don't want to conflict with whatever Kathy has said before. So I defer again to Kathy. I can check with her and see what she thinks about it.
Well, I think the main thing we were trying to restrict the public from editing. So we were talking about view only.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I wasn't in those discussions, so I'm not sure. But I can check with her in the morning.
I think
so there's the middle ground of, is it then people can comment, but then they can see the comments. So I think that the question is, do you want it so that we can only edit it and you're not allowed to comment, and then the public can't see any comments because there's no comments to be seen. So we agree to no commenting so that it's totally transparent. Or do you want to open it up to commenting for board members, which then also potentially feasibly someone from the public could also comment on it. And if they do, then we can't delete it until it's like the next version of it. I think there's merits to either way, but I just think we should decide before people start writing in it so that we don't mix it up.
I think that second way is fine. I hope I don't eat my words here, but I think it's a relatively low risk that somebody's going to come in to this document from the public and start throwing in all these comments. But I really will regret saying that if that happens. But I think it's important for board members who are looking at this to be able to make the comments on changes that they would want.
Yeah, I think comments are important here. I think what's getting written into this document is the stuff we're attempting to try and submit to the council. And I'm concerned that if we have to put our comments in line, the final edit of this document is going to be awful. So our comments are where we can discuss with each other. And if the public wants to throw in a comment, then if they want to throw in too many, then that's unfortunate. We'll have to switch it up. But I feel like for the function of this document and for the function of this group, commenting with our inline actual stuff we want in the document, not our conversation about the document. I think it's important for us to have those comments and not have to say, it's hard for me to get my head around how I'm going to have a discussion with the other people in this group about this while simultaneously trying to put in the final language I want to see. Those two things are very, very different here. And I think they need to remain separate, and I'm happy to take the risk with the public commenting potential so that we can do the document correctly.
I also support that.
Okay, it sounds like we're pretty much in agreement. I haven't heard much opposition to this direction that we're going. So January 3rd, comments by all.
And I'll take from the chart what people voted, and I can put their names on the next section with a bullet, so that's where you write your explanation for whether you supported or opposed.
And Allison, I apologize, but you just gave me suggesting, so I could technically make any edits I wanted right now. Just FYI.
Wait, do you have the capacity, Allison, to limit people to just suggesting, not editing?
Right now they have commenters. What I would love to do is go check with staff to see with Kristen what you can see. And I know that you can't edit in the Google Doc, but just I'm kind of uncomfortable changing things with Bia sharing what she can see. It's really helpful, but I'm not. That just feels.
So it looks like Bia's right in the sense that I can go in right now and make changes, make suggestions under the commenting, and I have the public access.
And
So I don't
similar
know.
to mine,
Yeah.
I don't have the ability to edit, but I can suggest.
Okay, so that's the intention.
Suggesting is different than commenting. Suggesting you're in line making edits to the document. You can it's just like track changes. You can see it.
My entire idea is kaput. This doesn't work. There's not an option that does what I was hoping it would do. So
You can see my testing in the document if you guys are looking at it.
I see that as well.
see right here. Sorry, I thought Google was going to come to the rescue there, but it turns out not so much. So I think that leaves us with, we have to answer in line next to our name. So Allison, if you can effectuate that so that we can actually make that in terms of us discussing something that we're not going to put in line in this document, is there a way for us to do that prior to all of us meeting at this next meeting? I feel like a written dialogue about this is probably going to be pretty valuable. And if we have to do this during the meeting next time, it's going to miss an entire month worth of our comments. So I guess that's a question for you, Laurel. Are we allowed to discuss this in a forum that is similar to commenting in Google Drive?
So if this is open to the public, you guys can write your comments in there. Again, like commenting back and forth to each other is a meeting. It needs to be noticed and given to the public. So that's why we were talking about making sure any of this goes into the next packet, making sure everybody sees it. So that's my concern is I don't want you guys to start kind of like having an email conversation and violating any sort of open meetings law. The public needs to be able to see what you're doing.
But if Evan comments and then I respond to his comment and then Evan responds back to his comment,
then you're creating an open meeting.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that has to be, you have to, it's not a bad thing to have an open meeting on this, but you have to have it publicly noticed and with enough days in advance, right? It's the whole process. And if you don't do those things, then you're violating open meetings law and opening the board up to being sued. Opening up to liability for litigation.
Okay, so alternatively, what if everyone submits their suggestions to Allison, who then puts in all those suggestions with attributions where it seems appropriate, and then that's released to the public in the meeting minutes?
I mean, my thing is that I don't know that it's going to be suggestions. It might be questions or clarifications, and Allison may not be able to answer that, right? So I guess that like what I think that's part of this.
And that go to staff to be compiled for a discussion for next month.
I guess
and put in the meeting packet.
I guess the main thing I was going to submit is just my comments on how I voted, why I voted the way I voted.
Why you're voting the way you're voting is going next to your name in the bullets. That's totally fine. You all can write that. It's what I was showing Stacy about adding a comment. That's the part that is challenge. So it sounds like we should just not do that. And you just write your name, write your stuff only next to your name. And then it will be very clear who wrote it because you're the only one who's writing it. And the members of the public can view it, but they can't edit. So then there's transparency on what's being said.
All right, just FYI, we're going to lose Robin soon also. So I'd kind of like to move on. Alana, you had a comment, but.
No, Robin can go first.
Thanks, Alana and Tom. I was just going to say, I like that idea. If Allison is game for taking everyone's comments and putting them in, and then if everyone could make a note of their concerns about the document and bring those ready to kind of just go through them, hit them, have a conversation about them, make those fixes, that could be a pretty efficient way to move forward.
Okay.
Also, thanks everybody. I'm on vacation and I've got a crew that's ready to go to dinner, so I gotta go. But
just a question before you go, Robin.
Yeah.
We can all add our own comments into like the information for our. I think we have editing capabilities. So next to your name, you can copy and paste your information from your other document into this one. Next to your name, next to that bullet point. It's just anything,
right.
Comments or questions or whatever that we can't do. I just want to make sure like we're not submitting our responses and not the comments.
Right. No, thanks for that clarification. I think that makes a lot of sense. We should be able to, I think, move through issues like language tweaks on the motions and a couple other items like that fairly quickly as a group.
Okay.
I would think that we could, I mean, could we at the next meeting go through each motion and just see, does anybody have any questions, yes or no? And then the next one, yes or no, the next one, yes or no, and then we just, like, everybody has to be prepared for that. So the conversation is, and then after the meeting, that's the.
Great. Kate, are you suggesting we all dump our comments into this document, public can view it, and then we settle up on the motion language in the next meeting?
Yes, but I would change your language from comments to responses.
Thanks.
Okay,
That sounds simple and compliant, and I can do it.
who wants to explain this to Michael?
I think it would be in the, John, are you gonna put it in the meeting minutes? What?
Yes, but the meeting minutes won't be available until the
Oh,
meeting
yeah.
packet for next time.
Got it. And just to be clear, we want this done by the 3rd.
Yeah, the response is completed by the 3rd. Yes.
Just so we're clear on like the comments of the actual motion language. I know some of you guys are going to comment on like whether it's accurate or not quite right. Totally fine. If you start changing language or anything like that, I know Kathy will come in and say you can't do that. It's just like if something is inaccurate, or the summary doesn't accurately portray the motion. Just so you know, she's going to come back and say that. Knowing Kathy.
We're just going to put our own comments, not make any changes.
Unless there's inaccuracies. And I know that there could be. I know some of you guys have kind of mentioned that. So
Okay.
Chair, I'm gonna have to log off.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
I'll catch up with you all. Thank you.
Okay, last question that I just said. Do you want me to try to explain to Michael? Allison, do you want to try to explain it?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. You can give him that tutorial because he missed that tutorial.
Well, forget the tutorial. Don't do that.
Well, don't
Forget I
do-
ever said it. All you're doing is typing next to your name.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all you're doing.
You could do it that way, couldn't you?
No, don't do it that way.
No, Tom.
Please don't do it that way.
Tom, just put your responses next to the individual bullet points where your name is. That's
As a
it.
suggester,
And
or-
then no, just edit it, put it in, but don't touch anybody else's.
Okay.
And tonight I'll put everyone, you'll have a little bullet with your name. Everyone will have that by the end. You don't have it now. It's just the first one, but I'll do it tonight.
What font should I use? Just joking. I'm just joking.
Wingdings.
Yeah.
The answer is always Comic Sans.
And as a side note, make sure that everybody reads the motions, the summary of the motions, to make sure that if there are things that we want to address next meeting, that we do talk about them, because that is going to be the final.
And note that in your own document.
Okay, so just to make sure I did it correctly, it's a test case. I put in under the very first part, summary of motions. Okay, thanks, Kate. I like the sea lion imitation. They have those in Michigan?
Sea lions?
I'm just kidding. Of course,
At the zoo?
maybe. Okay, all right, we're ready to move on, I think. Unless somebody says differently, but going back to the agenda here somewhere.
Yes, so agenda item number 6 would be matters from the senior council.
There we go. Thank you, John.
Sure.
So I guess that would be me. I don't have anything since I'm stepping in for Kathy, but just wishing her well on her vacation.
There we go.
Yes, and it's been a pleasure working with you guys tonight.
Well, we might see you again. You never know.
Yes,
Or she-
sometimes attorneys go on vacations.
Or she might run screaming, "No, not the club."
Yeah,
No.
I don't know if after this conversation, Laurel's ever coming back.
We scared her away. All right.
No, it's been great.
Matters from the regulatory. I'm back. I'm back on here, John. Matters. Agenda item 7, matters from the regulatory licensing office.
Thanks, Tom. So just a couple things. If anyone has any suggestions for agenda topics for future meetings, please share those with staff. We'll make sure to add them to our list. And just a reminder, as people have mentioned today, that the January meeting has been moved to Monday, January 9th, due to the New Year's holiday. I just sent out a placeholder to everyone, so you should have a meeting request just to kind of save the date. But I just wanted to give you one last reminder about that date change.
And Brian?
This is a question. Yeah, question for staff on this. I know during our planning meeting for this, I just wanted to sort of, staff had mentioned that the city are still considering how and whether Prop 122 should be decisions should be allocated to this board or some other board or go through a similar advisory panel kind of process. Would we have more information on that direction by January, or is this a longer term discussion?
I would be surprised if we had any updates by January 9th, especially given that we've got a couple holidays between now and then. I haven't heard any movement on where that's going. Laurel, have you heard any updates on that?
No, the last time I tried to get some updates from staff that are higher up in the world than me, there hasn't been any decisions made yet.
So Brian,
no, hopefully we can do it soon. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, if we do have that information, we'll share it with you as soon as we can. That's my prediction, is that we probably won't have it by the next meeting on the 9th.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and anyone has any additional speaker ideas that they would like more information? We had a list somewhere. Was it in our packets either somewhere? So I didn't see it.
It was in a previous packet, and we haven't made any changes since then. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you. Just kind of, I'd like just to bring it to the attention of the board based on prior discussion with today's meeting with clarifying information in the minutes. During the time of approval of the minutes, that is the time to bring up to, hey, can we make any changes? Things of that nature. So please, when it's that time at future meetings, if you feel like the minutes are not as in depth for motion language or things like that, because they are action minutes, please let us know at that time, because we have the document open and we can certainly make changes right then and there at that time of voting for the approval of minutes. And then of course those to be signed by the chair on the next day. So just please keep in mind that if you have any changes, that agenda item number 1 certainly is time to bring those up for discussion for future meetings.
Okay. And then matters from the chair and members of the board. There was a list of the articles here somewhere.
Stacy, did you want to share our homework?
It is in the packet. I saw it in there. In the reading packet, the document that Brian and I worked on that was summarizing all of the recommendations basically we came up with during the retreat to help the meetings run more smoothly and effectively. We just kind of put some examples into the list that I think appears in another place in the packet already, just to kind of clarify further what was talked about during the retreat and how we can apply it.
Yeah, so just reiterate on page 16 of the meeting packet, this was from, I think we went around the room, we each sort of shared one thing that we would hope to sort of improve how the meetings are conducted at the retreat. And so Stacy and I went back, we kind of like organized this, and then on page 17, came up with some like recommendations and example language, and we kind of grouped these sorts of into similar kinds of themes. So again, just kind of governing how our interactions with each other, how we sort of run our meetings and what we do outside of meetings. These are, again, not necessarily binding, but these are suggestions that we kind of fleshed out with some examples for this as well. Whether and how we engage with this, I would hope that Stacy and my homework was not for waste, but I hope that we can use this to guide our conversations and interactions and conduct of meetings going forward. You can certainly direct your feedback in a open records compliant way to me or Stacy, and we can incorporate that in some kind of way as well.
Well, we had a motion today. How did we do? Brian and Stacy?
I think today's meeting went very nicely, all said and done.
I think everyone was very well behaved and they get stickers.
Did we do temperature taking on motions and pre-constructed motions? It wasn't an in the moment motion.
Well, I think John really effectuated a good modification there. We had a common thing to look at. And I think now the record of the meeting will show exact language as opposed to the interpreted language we have to do on the fly meeting, or on the fly minutes taking. So I think obviously the pre-considered motion is the optimal situation where we all have a moment to review it before we come to the meeting. But I think at the very least, we need to have a screen share exactly like we just did. And it worked well and everybody was able to agree. It was one of 3 unanimous votes in this group ever. So we're doing good. It was a great improvement.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank Brian and Stacy for the follow-up recommendations, because it actually provided a lot more context too into the retreat. So just wanted to thank you all for that.
So the last article that was shared in the meeting packet, is that the NPR story that I overheard your voice on, Brian?
Yeah, this is an adaptation of that interview, but I also see Alana has a hand up that might be related to previous business.
Okay, Alana.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, I wanted to thank you guys. I didn't have time to look at this before right now. So thanks for calling our attention to it as well. Now, I think it'd be worth, I mean, I'd love to see be worth putting this like towards the mission of our packet and just reminding, maybe it can, if we all remember this every meeting, they could go better. But I really do appreciate you guys spending extra time in between the retreat and this meeting, because that was a lot of extra stuff. So truly, thank you.
Yep, I agree. I did not share today though. I don't know if
You did. I heard you make some comments. I think you did offer some.
Okay, all right. Brian, or Alana, your hand is still up.
Yeah, I'm ready to talk about my topic whenever you want, Chair.
Okay, well, how about I'll let Brian chair the rest of this meeting, which includes comments by Alana or suggestions by Alana.
I support Alana's suggestion. If we make it a formal motion, we can, but it would be great to have the follow-up recommendations for CLAB meetings included in future reading packets for the board. If that was okay with staff.
We're happy to include that. That's very easy for us to do. And I'm not sure that there needs to be a motion, but I'll defer to Laurel if you think there should be a formal motion on that.
I don't think there needs to be a formal motion. It's like I said before, that we were just doing standard practice for what staff normally does for minutes. But if it's okay with Kristen and her team to do that going forward, I don't think there needs to be a motion.
And this is just to confirm that you want to have the recommendations, the document that Stacy and Brian created, to be included in the future packets.
That was my intent, correct? Thank you.
Sure, certainly I can make a note.
Should that be in the meeting packet?
Yep.
Yeah, just like an article. You just put it in there.
Otherwise it gets buried in the 100 pages in the reading packet. Okay, Brian, your chair.
Or to what end?
Take us home.
I was interviewed by on CPR, Colorado Public Radio, last week, talking about the first 10 years of cannabis legalization. There's a 30-minute interview you can listen to, and then there's also this couple-page article write-up that summarizes some of the conversation. And I think I got to name check our board. Hopefully that came through in the interview. I haven't listened to it at the end because I hate the sound of my voice. But I did my best to sort of represent some of the work that we're doing on this board, as well as really important to the professionalization and progress that the cannabis industry has made over the last 10 years. And if I'm actually still chairing, then I will move us to the last item for the night. Is where to go? Or I'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless there are other matters for the board.
I think Alana, I believe, has.
Yeah, so I had a matter. I had it at the last meeting as well, which ran late. And now that I'm seeing who's left in the meeting, it's also not really an ideal time of the meeting without Michael and Robin here. But I'll give you some background, which is in the meeting where I recused myself around the concentrate vote, a couple months later, I followed up with Jeff Gard to get legal advice around whether that was the right thing to do, because I couldn't really get it out of my conscience that I didn't make my vote on that matter. And I also just know in and of myself and my business that there was no way I could immediately or directly benefit from having voted on that motion. So it stuck with me for a while, even though I had found it important in the moment to honor the concerns that I was hearing from my board members and to remove myself from the meeting and recuse myself. Like I said, I followed up with Jeff Gard and I got different advice that I should not have necessarily recused myself in that meeting, because my relationship to the item that we were discussing is more incidental than direct. And I am a member of a group of people that somebody could potentially make an argument about would benefit from that motion, but incidental as a member of a group of people, for example, manufacturers in Boulder, that might have had potential benefit from that. I provided the letter to you guys, and I sent it to Kathy a while back. Once I first got the letter, I sent it to Kathy immediately, and I said, "Hey, wanted you to be in the loop. I got advice from Jeff. And I shared it with her, and she concurred with the letter that you have in the packet. And her comment was just to caution against quasi-judicial, taking this interpretation to apply to quasi-judicial hearings. That was her word of caution, was just, let's think again, or let's revisit before we dive into quasi-judicial. There might be some distinctions. So I would point to a very specific, you can read the letter on your own or not, but at the end of it, in the second to last paragraph, there's one sentence that makes it clear to me, that's helps clarify. It says, the guidance they provide as an industry member on CLAB relates to whether my decision would lead to a financial gain for me that is different than the financial gain to others in the community. And that's the language that I use to kind of describe the incidental versus like exclusive benefit. With that in mind, I would really like to be part of that vote. I am not going to ask the CLAB to revote on that right now, seeing as Robin and Michael are not here. That would obviously not be, in the spirit of repeating that vote. But I would like you to review this letter if you can, and consider a revote with the membership in the next meeting so that my voice can be memorialized on this topic.
I did read Jeff's letter to you. And the only, I'm sorry, Jeff, but it's not really fair. But one thing I noticed that's missing, and I'm chair of 3 boards right now, and so I take ethics things 3 times a year. And one of the things that I did not see in his letter is the perception of conflict of interest. That sometimes it's not necessarily the conflict of interest, but public perception of what, how your vote might play out. And I mean, that's probably the most important thing that I would consider. Like, say, for instance, on the vote as to whether concentrates would be allowed in hospitality establishments, the public perception of that vote would be that that could be a conflict.
I recognize Evan.
We have 2 positions on this board specifically allocated to industry members who, by the very nature of their profession, would benefit from an expansion of regulations for this industry. If we were to be on this board without, like, the perception, yes, Tom, you're right. The perception is that we are most logically going to vote for things that benefit our industry. I don't think there's any question that that is our interest. It's explicit. That is our interest. The perception is, of course, I mean, if you had an outside business that was going to benefit not publicly, but through a back channel, then that would be a conflict of interest. But it's not a conflict. It's obvious that I want to do good things for the marijuana industry. I'm on this board because I'm a marijuana business owner in the city. So I understand that if you were disguising that you were going to benefit from something, then that would exclude you. But we're not disguising anything. We're obviously we're the industry members on the board. So
I just don't see
I
where
hear what you're saying about
I
hear what you're saying about the perception, but like, I think the perception's implicit for us.
Well, can I respond to that?
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not talking in generalities. I'm talking in specifics. It would be, let's say that, and I'm just going to, just for the purpose of illustration, and Brian and I started a research institute that was going to look at cannabis research, and we were going to, I don't want to carry it too far, but let's say that we were voting on something that would advocate for more research or pay money for some research, and that we could directly benefit from such a vote, then I'm talking about perception of a very specific topic. Not, I know there's 2 people on the board that are industry representatives as by design.
Tom, you use the word direct, and that's where I clarified direct versus, being incidental part of a group of people in a community. And I'm trying to look at this rather like, obviously from a legal perspective, having brought in a legal opinion, because I'm trying to avoid perception. I know that I am not in a good, favorable position when it comes to perception of an opinion surrounding this topic, as I've heard from the beginning of my time here. However, it's up to the individual to know whether or not they're in a position to directly benefit and to recuse themselves. So I'm not sure where exactly this perception, your fear of public perception that comes from a certain angle of a certain group of people that have a certain perspective in the community, how that is material in what I'm raising. It can be your perspective that you don't agree with me because you think that you can't possibly see how there's not a direct conflict or benefit to be had. But I would encourage you to maybe discuss that through with me, because there's just no way I could directly benefit from this. The only thing I can directly benefit from is an increase in square foot of my cultivation. And in as far as this is not going to increase my square foot of cultivation to increase the amount of products I can sell, this is not going to be a direct benefit to me. I have hundreds of customers. I have over 1,000 customers to potentially sell my products to. Just because I have 3 additional out of over 1,000, that doesn't mean a direct benefit.
All right, I'm trying to direct traffic here. Tom, do you want to respond, or do you want me to check in with Evan?
I see Evan and Kate waiting to.
All right, Evan.
Kate had her hand up for me, for sure.
All right, go ahead, Kate.
I was just going to respond to Tom's example, just to use it as another, I guess from my perspective, right? If we were talking about research and you wanted more research on cannabis, of course, I wouldn't think that there's any conflict there. Just because you're doing research or you want to do extra research, that you're not directly benefiting from that, or even if we don't use the word directly, like you're not benefiting from that, but all people that are researching cannabis could benefit from that. But if it was, we were trying to say that this specific company needs to do the research, and that was you, then yes, I mean, you obviously should recuse yourself. Also, like, I know that we did talk about well, no, I'll leave that alone. No, we're getting at that time and I don't want to open that. So, but that's just to use your example and how I would view like whether or not that constitutes a conflict of interest. And I think that if you thought about it too, like I would think, and I'll actually direct it to you. Do you see the distinction between the two? And do you think that there is a conflict if it was to your organization as opposed to just research in general?
I guess to answer that and to answer Alana, you chose to recuse yourself. We didn't.
She was asked to. Absolutely. I did choose to recuse myself. I knew the decision was only mine to make. I heard from the membership of the board, and I chose to honor them in the moment without better information. And then I got legal information from a lawyer who I work with, and that's what came out. And I said, okay, after I sent it to Kathy, and I mean, look at the date of this letter. I've sat with this for a long time. I don't take this stuff lightly. But here we are mulling over these motions, and I don't think it's a lot to ask for me to bring you guys in. And also, you just need to know you should memorialize this letter. The CLAB should memorialize this letter, because we're probably going to be up against this for the rest of time.
Well, and then so we did, Laurel, I believe we'd have to go back and listen to the minutes of the meeting, but I believe it was legal counsel that primarily advised Alana that she should recuse. And I don't think it was, I'm pretty sure it was not me.
I don't know. Yeah.
And so to go back to Kate's point, let's say, I mean, I know Alana's company is not the only company that sells concentrates in the world. And let's say that I was one of 100 or one of 10 companies that did research, and somehow, I could stand to benefit from.
Tom, I'm one of 500 companies in Colorado that do what I do.
Okay, well,
one of dozens in Boulder.
Tom, I really got to ask what do you think the end of this is? Because let's be very honest about this. I own every category of license in the city. So am I supposed to recuse myself from every subject matter? That's crazy. The reason I'm here is to have an opinion that is going to benefit my industry. If I make a proposal here today that can only benefit my store, then that would be totally inappropriate. But if I'm making a recommendation here that is for the benefit of the industry in general, then I'm doing my job. It's not a conflict of interest. Obviously, my interest is to benefit my own business, but I cannot do that specially from benefiting the public that got me here.
I'm not questioning that, Evan.
And I think that it is unreasonable to request that we recuse ourselves from things that could benefit our industry category.
No,
there's no point in us being here if you ask us to do that.
At this point in time, nobody is asking anyone to recuse themselves from any. I mean, it's up to the individual to decide whether they have a conflict of interest.
And Alana made a decision in the moment and is now ask us to vote on this again with probably more clear language than we had that day. And I fully support that, and I think we should do it at the next meeting.
I was going to say, might I suggest tabling this to the next meeting, partially because Kathy was the one that was involved with this discussion, but also it sounds like, Alana, you want to the full board to be here to be able to talk about this. So that was kind of my suggestion.
Yeah, I have also spoken to 2 other law firms about this. One is in Colorado, one is a big national firm. And without even a moment of hesitation, they both advised me that I'm allowed to vote on anything that doesn't single my business out. So I think we should just revote on something that Alana recused herself on, but shouldn't have.
We can do that. Alana can also put in her comments in the summary, and can list that in her comments that would say, I've been given advice that I did not need to recuse myself, and so therefore I would like to vote this way.
I'll just remind the board as a point of order that motions can always be introduced and seconded and voted on. So it's just a matter of if 2 members of this board want to introduce a motion and second it, then we can certainly vote on that again.
Well, let's not do that this time if we can.
But I would support a motion from Laurel that we table this.
Not saying that you shouldn't have a motion at some point, but.
Yeah, and I'll just use my last comment to double back on a comment I made earlier, that it's unfortunate when members sit here for 3.5 hours, meeting after meeting, and get this little bit of time to review their items. I tried to get this through the city ahead of the last meeting, and I couldn't, and now I'll wait until January. But I just think matters from members is worth a little bit more priority.
Share that maybe in the future meetings, we can bump this up the priority list. Thank you for the feedback.
Okay.
Any other matters from members of the board or staff? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I noticed that Allison came back on the screen during the discussion. I don't know if that was because you wanted to contribute or you just want to wait until next time.
No, I just need to turn my screen off for a second.
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
Motion to adjourn.
Your motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second that.
I have a second from Evan. Are anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Thank you, public.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Have a good night. Bye.
Hey, have a good holiday.